Hey YouTube, how is it going? I hope all is well. Serenity now, serenity now, serenity now. It has been a hell of a freaking week, let me tell you. How was your week? I know how some of your week has been for some of them, some of you guys out there. I see that Short Circuit, YDNA, Maria, Andy, Riley, everybody's in the house right now. Riley, why are you suffering with a migraine? You should not be suffering with a migraine. And we're going to do things real quick. Sorry, I'm doing some management right now. So, Sneaky Luke. Yes, I'm getting him in when I can. So, it's been a hell of a week, let me tell you. Nothing has gone my way. Monday started off just like an absolute doo-doo show. Let's just say it like that. There's just nothing quite like everything not working. And then you could almost put it to a clock. Every like 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, right? Everybody's stressed out. Every 5 to 10 minutes, I'd either have a phone call, text message, a Teams message, an email, a ticket come through, or somebody walk in my door. It was out of control. And it was every 5 minutes on the minute. Yeah, it's just all day. It was maddening. So, here we are now. I have some good news. The Cerberus, that guy right there, is finally done. Not the cabinet. The amp itself is done. Like, I'm calling it done. The noise floor is actually quite acceptable. I did a little bit more work in there. I finally got the... this is how my week is going. I did some work on the Cerberus. I was getting ready to stuff it inside of the cabinet. And I decided it would probably be wise if I give it one more test before I do that. So I plug it in, I turn it on, and you know the things, it would switch, but it wouldn't switch between the two channels. I'm like, what the heck? It would only work with one channel. So I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. I'll go and I'll fix it. So as I was going to fix it, the LED decided to exit the chat. Freaking thing, let it go. So the LED decided to let it go, and you could see there it just broke off right at the lead inside of the thing. So I had to buy another freaking LED. I put that in today. That's taken care of. I got the channel switching thing figured out. It was another wire had broken loose. So I had two wires that broke loose. The ones that I did repair, I repaired them properly. I just missed this other one that had broken away. So that issue is dealt with. The Cerberus is tested. It is ready to go inside of the amp, or inside of the cabinet. The cabinet is like 9/10 of the way done. I have the holes drilled for the handle. I got the corners put on. I have the mirror put in there and all that fun stuff. I'll show you that here in just a minute. Work has been nuts. I've been scheduling stuff for going to Sweden. I am going to Sweden, everybody. Yes, the winner of the giveaway amp, Linus is his name, just so those of you who are mad at Mr. Pothos89 have a name to actually be upset with. His name is Linus. Really cool cat. He's been keeping in good touch with me. I bought a case today to put the amp in. I'm going to have to check it, unfortunately. I was hoping I could do it with carry-on, but it's too heavy. They'll never let me get away with it, so... I bought a case so I can check it. That'll be here on Sunday. And then Thursday of next week, I fly out. I probably won't do much content. I might do one more show next week. Kind of just showing off the amp one last time before it goes away. Obviously, I'm going to try to get the Cerberus completed this week. My plan is to have that done tomorrow. And hopefully start doing some sound stuff with it after I get back. So not next week, but the following week. That's the plan, all right. Or at the moment, at least, anyway. I've got my maker's mark. Because I need my maker's mark. Oh, my God. But I want to know how you guys are doing. I hope everybody's doing all right. John, how is the amp? How are you liking it so far? I understand that you initially had some issues with it. Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat over there. Had a couple of issues with it, and you got that worked out. How are you liking it right now? Is it doing the thing for you? What can you compare it to? I guess is the big question. Oh, Maria, thank you. I try to be a nice guy. I'm only an asshole that ends on, on days that end in Y. Generally, I'm a nice guy. Generally. I have a type A passive-aggressive personality, though, so, I'll usually slip the knife in while I'm giving you a hug or something like that. I try not to do that, though. As I get older, I found I'm getting a little more leveled out and calm. My aggression is a little more pointed, I guess, if you will. I wish I was a little bit more like Andy, where I could, when I'm aggravated at that moment, I could just vent it out and get it over with. I probably sit on it a little too long. How long will I be gone? I leave on the 20th, which is Thursday. So a week from today at 6:50 p.m. is when my flight goes out. We land in Helsinki on Friday the 21st at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then we have a short little skippy hop jump over to actual Stockholm. From there is another like hour-long flight or something like that. And then the hotel that I got, I kind of biffed it a little bit. When I was trying to find hotels, I was trying to find hotels very near where Linus lives, and I thought I had collected 4 places that were within that general vicinity and were within like a 15 to 20 minute like walk or train ride or something like that. I ended up picking this spot that was like an hour away. Damn it. But we're staying at a pretty nice place. I think I got stuck on, I'm American, so, I like big things. So I got a queen size bed, and a nice place. I'm not staying in a hostel or anything like that. So we're going to do it up pretty nice. Brian is going with me, my friend Brian. He's the one who's basically made kind of all this happen here. He's provided me with a computer. He's bought a couple amps. I've talked about him before, but he's going with me to make sure I stay out of trouble. No, that's not actually true. He's actually there to kind of help me do some of the filming, and just kind of make sure everything goes okay. My understanding is that Sweden, they're not too fond of Americanos. BC Electronics, thank you for coming in. Yeah, so I'm trying to turn it into a vacation more so than anything. We have some plans going on right now. It's looking like we're going to land on Friday, get there Friday evening, into our hotel, get checked in, all that friggin' jazz. And then Saturday, we're going to go meet with Linus and go do stuff with the amp, which is right here behind me. This guy is going away. She is done. She is done. I'm going to go through it this weekend, take some final pictures and make sure everything is going to be, dialed in. No gotchas or anything like that. Basically, if I take it out, put it back in, and it still works after I put it back in, everything should be good. I never did take any photographs of it on the inside other than the video stuff that I did. So I want to get back in there and make sure. Oh, wow. I'm collecting some people. Thank you guys for, eliminating of the trolls, if you will. With any luck, I'm not being live streamed either right now. Not that it would be that interesting, but... So yeah, I didn't take any photos of the inside, so I'm going to take a couple photos just for my own, so I can build this amp again, because I kind of do want to put that into production. It's a pretty cool little amp. I'm super stoked with it, and I know that Linus will be as well. I've got a few last minute things lined up. I'm using one of them right now. So I got these DJI mics. These things are pretty cool if you're looking for just a wireless mic. Right now at Best Buy, they have these things on sale. This model right here is the DJI Mini. It comes with 2 mics and a little receiver thing. It's $69 at Best Buy right now. When I bought this one, it was when Brian bought this one, it was $99. Go freaking figure. And that was only a week or 2 ago. So if you're into something like this, I have found it to be quite amazeballs. I'm going to say it just like that. Like, this thing goes pretty much wherever you want it to. It sounds reasonable. Not great, but reasonable. And it plugs in via USB-C, and it just freaking works. Like, I have not had any issues with it. It's never cut out. Like, it's just been solid. With a little more work, I think I can make it sound a little bit better, but I've put about 5 minutes of time into just getting to where it is currently, and that's good enough for me. So, I got that. I've got a new 360 cam. Brian picked up one of those as well. So I have a little case for the 360 cam. So we're going to try to do a bunch of that stuff. I'm probably going to bring this camera that you see here just in case. And then we got a brand new iPhone 17. I've got both my phones and all that fun stuff. So we should have no excuse not to get any kind of content. Linus does not want to be seen. I have not worked out how I'm going to do that yet, but maybe he'll change his mind when he's there. But we will respect that. So there might be either a blocking out of his face, or we'll just do really tight shots to make it so that he feels comfortable and confident and all that stuff. Apparently his father is going to be there as well. His father-in-law, I believe, who actually is the one, he says, that plays guitar. Linus is not too stoked on his guitar playing. He said, please do not judge him, but I'm sure he's going to be just fine. It doesn't really matter. The idea behind the amp is inspiration anyway, so hopefully it inspires him to play more and be a better player. So that's the hope anyway. I have filled out my tax information finally through YouTube. I have finally made enough money to actually get paid, all of maybe $100, sans any taxes. It only took 3 months of monetization to get paid maybe $75 after everything's all said and done. So imagine that. I'm finally getting somewhere in that regard. I got a lot of stuff coming up. I'm looking at 2 chassis right now that are ready for me to do some work. One of them is for my buddy Hector, who is the guitar tech for Paul McCartney. That is going to be an 18-watt build. I need to get rolling on that one, like literally as soon as I hit the ground after I get back. I have my KT88 build. I'm still mulling over whether or not I want to just go for broke and make it a 100-watt or an 80-watt version. The power transformer that I have is beefy, and I sized it so that way if I wanted to go with a higher voltage one, it would fit in the same exact holes as this lower voltage one. I like doing the lower voltage thing. So, hey Colby, how's it going, man? Or girl, lady, Mrs., all the above. But thank you for coming in. So I'm still on the fence about that. I don't really want to make a 100-watt amp. I don't like 100-watt amps. I know Andy's gritting his teeth right now. But that is coming up. The tweaker, I finally got all the stuff for that. I picked up a bunch of these little guys here. So I've got, half a dozen of these, or these things, or whatever the heck these are called, turret strip boards or whatever. So these are for the tweaker that I'm hoping to get started on soon. I'm going to try to simultaneously build all these amps kind of in tandem with each other. I am probably looking to go more live on that. So there'll be long and tedious videos. Man. What's up, bro? Maybe I should have another drink or two. Maybe I'll start seeing straight. But yeah, so much going on. I'm hoping Andy's actually going to send me that other project here pretty soon. I'm hoping before the end of the year. That would make a nice Christmas gift, Andy, for you to send that to me. Because my hope is to have the 18-watt of mine done right around Christmas. I'm going to turn into a wood shop here pretty quick. I have enough parts here to build like 3 or 4 amps. I don't have enough stuff to do any cabinetry. But now that I've kind of worked things down into a pretty standard like build thing, it should go a lot quicker for me to build these things. That's the hope anyways, to try to figure out a way to make the cabinets quicker. Let me tell you, the cabinetry is a bitch and a half. Let's show that now. So, never mind all the tape. There is some tape, but here's the back side of it. And I'm trying to show you at the same time. You can see I did some piping along the inside edge there. I got it pretty dang close there with the striping on the carbon fiber Tolex. But yeah, I did that. I still have some stuff in here. Oh, look at that. The mirror's doing its job. I still have some fascia pieces to put around here. That's going to be going in next. The front side of it, you can see I got the corners on there as well, the holes, but there's the front side, and I'm trying to give you a shot that shows you kind of what it looks like. It's really difficult to show you what it actually looks like, but there's the Y-DNA thing. Ooh, yeah, there we go. Maybe that does it. No, not quite. You can see I've got the metal on the bottom kind of sitting there. I've got the fascia pieces in there for the mirror. I did want to show you what it looks like when it's lit up, so let me spend a little bit of time of that. I need a lot of elves. I need elves to put on my shelves. Where did I put that electronical stuff? I just had it. I sat it down somewhere. I was trying to be funny because I literally sat it. Where did I set it? There it is. I knew I sat it down right here. Okay. So, never mind this thing. This has to go into... Sorry, this is very uncoordinated at the moment. Okay, so just so you can kind of see what's going on here. That connects with the USB-C connector, and then this little dongle right here is what actually is inside of the amp. But I'm going to try to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. It's going to be a challenge, so bear with me while I figure this out. Okay, did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? That is the question. I see light. Okay. So there you can kind of see it all lit up. Pretty cool? Yeah? It's pretty bright. I like it. It's a little washed out on the camera. It's not actually that washed out in real life, but that is the lighting. So as you can see, that's what it looks like when it's off. There you have it. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked on that. That is some freaking awesome stuff right there, okay? All right. So let me get this out of here. We don't need this anymore. The only reason this cabinet has taken as much time and as work as it does is because it's literally engineered specifically for the Cerberus. The Cerberus is different in size to what I normally do. And it's also... Sorry, doing multiple things. As you can see, kind of cleaned up my space a little bit there. We got the Atlas. This thing is just about done. We're getting really close with it. I'm super stoked with it right now. So, that has been what I've been up to. The Cerberus is going to be freaking awesome. Let me tell you right now. It's a lot less noisy than I thought it would be. After finishing all the work and kind of getting everything dialed in, I was actually quite pleasantly surprised when I turned it on today, literally about an hour ago, and it was very, very acceptable. Much, much better than it was. When I got it, initially it was unplayable. There was so much buzz and noise and stuff. I didn't even change the tube yet, so it could be the tube even that's still a little noisy. So we'll play with that some more, but... It's sounding pretty good. It's sounding pretty good. I really, really like the first channel. Channel 1 on that thing is quite killer. By the time you get to channel 2, for me, it's got more gain than I care for. Obviously, the third channel is just, you know, super saturated. It's kind of like a Soldano, if you will, in that regard. A lot of gain. If you gain it up to noon, I'd be shocked. I found kind of for me with single coils, the sweet spot was between like 9 to 11 o'clock, right in there somewhere. So. What else is going on? I did a gig the other day. It went really well. I was quite stoked with that. I did the Texas guitar quartet. So they did a lot of like Spanish style classical guitar music. That was actually a really fun gig. It went really well. I get to do a lot of cool stuff. So did you... Oh. No, I didn't take the silver wire. There's no silver wire in this one. This one now has... Well, I didn't really have to change all that much in there, really. I did... Hold on, may as well... Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And we're here to play the game, so... Gee, heavy. Okay, so... Let's see if I can do this. So obviously you're looking at the top of the amp. You can kind of see some of the things I've done there. There was a couple wires that I replaced. I did just a little bit of cleanup and whatnot, but some of the stuff that I did that is, you can see this guy over here, that guy right there. I added another little buck converter. It's not even a buck converter. What is it? It's like it takes 5 volts and it turns it up to like 11 or 12 volts. And that's what's powering the lights. You can see that I moved that thing that looks like my backdrop in there. This guy, this guy right here. That's the other relay. It used to exist on this side over here with this other one. So those are split up. You can see the new wire I put in there for the LED. It's kind of tucked down in there. If I can show you. I'm trying to walk and chew bubblegum, so I apologize. But I didn't really have to do all that much work. Those big blue caps there, I ended up redoing that area. And then this area right in there, well, that's the new transformer leads. But there's a couple resistors and a cap on the end there. That is for the elevated heater. So what did I add for this thing? I've talked about it a little bit before, but I put in elevated heaters to help make life a little bit easier on the cathode followers. There are 2 cathode followers in this amp, and it's easier on them when the heaters aren't separated so much from the cathodes. So I did that. Monster. This thing's kind of heavy. It's a little awkward to hold and try to point opposite. So you'll notice that this is in the correct orientation here. Everything's in the correct orientation. So when I see you, my right hand is on my left hand side. It gets a little challenging to keep track of what's where. It's like, I used to race RC cars. I don't know what it is. Like, I could turn those, no problem. If it was coming at me, I just knew which way to go. But looking at this, it's a pain in the ass. So. Did you etch away? Oh. I do have you. Okay. So I have a laser machine. And if you take a mirror, it's just a basic like door mirror. And I cut it to the size, obviously. And then with the laser, you reverse the image. And then you just burn out the whatever makes the mirror does what it mirrors, how it mirrors. I don't know what that material is. It's aluminum oxide or something that causes the mirror. So yeah, you just burn that away. And the way that the stuff goes on the glass and the way it burns off, it makes it look frosted. It's actually kind of opaque still. So you can't see through it other than the fact that you can see that there's light. In another video, I kind of showed what I did to make it so it glows like that. But more or less, I had to inset off the back panel. I had to inset a little bit. And then I put a piece of white paper and an LED like rim around this piece of acrylic that I frosted. I sanded it to make it look frosted to distribute or diffuse the light. So when you do that, it creates this nice glow, if you will. And then with that, of course, you can illuminate the backside of the mirror. So that's the idea. Yeah, it's actually wired pretty reasonable. It's not that bad. Not that bad at all. Considering how many hands have been in it as well. So, 3. Right? There you go. I will do a full video on the Cerberus once it's complete. It's just because it took me so long and I fudged it earlier this week. I was hoping to have it done today to start doing some stuff this weekend. That's not going to happen now. I'm going to finish building it tomorrow. I'm going to work on getting the Peacemaker ready to go. And I'm going to have to come back to the Cerberus after I get back. I will be using an 8-string for it. So I'm going to get that all re-prepped. My 8-string has been sitting unattended for many years now. I don't play it very often. I don't really do that kind of music, as you already know. So, any questions other than that? Because I've kind of gotten through most all the news at this point in time. I guess some of the things that have been happening is G&L has closed their doors, but they immediately got bought up by Fender. I did not know the history of G&L guitars and Fender. I kind of thought, I knew that G&L was the remnants of Fender when he left Fender after he sold it to CBS or whatever. I did not realize like the IP rules and laws and stuff. I will wear my sunglasses. Hold on. I will have these sunglasses here when I play my 8-string guitar, because you gotta be cool. You gotta be cool. And I'm pretty cool. I love these glasses. My wife freaking hates them. She hates them. She won't go in public with me with them. So I usually torment her with them. But John, you never did answer my question. We are interested in your thoughts on the, what are we calling it? The purple people eater, the little monster, and a Monster Energy drink. Yeah, right. No, I don't really like the Monster Energy. I'm a Red Bull kind of guy. Colby knows. I'm all about the Red Bull. I need wings. I like to fly. Andy was talking with me a little bit about his Custom 400. We were going on a little bit about the screens. It sounds to me like he's just going to go with the 1K screen grid resistors and nothing else. I think that's honestly going to be just fine. He always calls me late at night, and I'm usually tuned by then. So it's like, the knowledge is there and the idea, it's in the brain, rattled around enough to get you this close, right? But then you go back the next morning and you start crunching the numbers, and then you go and you check some of the online calcs and all that stuff, and just read the data sheets and kind of make sure that, what you were thinking was going to be the case is the case. And it turns out that we're within 9/10 of the way there, 90%, 95% correct right off the get-go a lot of the time. Luckily, when it comes to most of these things for electronics, you just kind of do what someone else did. Realistically, you're going to be kind of close. But one of the things that, the little monster, okay. It's a real show now, by the way. You don't want to be hasty. Whatever. Just get in there and get dirty. Just turn it up. Let's go. I can't speak because I've got half a dozen amps here that neither of you have ever heard. But as much as we'd like to copy everyone, we try not to. But we were talking a little bit about that, the Custom 400 and where to try to go. I know that you mentioned you got some parts today. Did those come in, Andy, or did they come in yesterday? I can't recall if they were yesterday or today. Sorry, I know that it looks like I'm looking over there, but just trying to keep an eye on the chat. How many of you are there in here anyway? Hold on. That's what I need. Turn this up. Hey, what do you know? I can actually see stats now. There's been 30 views and there's 6 of you concurrently in here. That means a lot of you have come and gone. Colby, you left me hanging. I know I'm not that interesting. Some parts, okay. What are you still waiting on? Obviously you need to get the tube still. I almost sent you $100 the other day, almost. But then I heard you got some money from Homeboy, and I was just like, dang it, I need to go on this trip. I can't spend any more money. This trip is costing me a bit of money, let me tell you. As much as that's why I'm going to try to just make it as fun as I can. I'm just, at this point, it's already a sunk cost, if you want to call it that. So it's just, how much fun can I get out of it? So I'm just trying to make sure that everything gets done in that regard. I want Linus to feel comfortable. I want him to have a good time. I just want to be able to walk in there, plug it in, turn it on, and just know that there's not going to be any surprises. I am going to bring some parts with me. I do have a nifty little one of these guys here. So this guy here It has an oscilloscope in it, so I'll bring this guy with me. So that way we can run an oscilloscope if we need to, although I highly doubt that we will. But this guy does a lot of cool stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but these things are not that expensive. And if you don't have an oscilloscope, this is good enough. It's not going to be as good as like a Siglent or something like that, or one of those $500-600 units that you can buy out there. I have a 2-channel Siglent. No, it's actually a 3-channel, but in either case, I don't really ever use it because I don't generally repair anything and I don't generally have any problems. There's one amp that I built. It was actually the Atlas here, that guy. When I first built it, it had some weird oscillation thing going on, but it was so high up in frequency that you could only see it with an oscilloscope. And the problem that it caused was not really a problem, other than it just seemed like something was off. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like something was off, and then you go and like, okay, well, let's scope it out, and you scope it, and you're just like, oh, well, okay. So what do we got to do to fix that? It was a very unique type of oscillation. Got that figured out though, so it's all normal now. But okay, so you got turret boards, caps, oh, and some tubes. Okay, I need to buy some tubes. I have plenty of these guys. Oh wow, the box disappears. I got plenty of JJs, so I got some Focus, thank you. I got a bunch of those. I got a crap ton of them. And I have just a bunch of other tubes kind of stuffed away here. Where are they? I got some KT66s. I got some 6L6s and stuff like that. I've got tubes all over the place. I've even got some. There's some more 6L6s here. I've got some EL84s. Like, they're all over the place. I got drawers full of tubes. But I got some KT88s over there. I've currently got KT77s in the Cerberus. For those of you who don't know, KT77s are like the hybrid of a 6L6 and an EL34 kind of built into one. So short circuit, there he is. Just chilling. Just being quiet, huh? How's that build of yours going along? Did you kind of get it all dialed in? I'm not mistaken. It was you that was having fun with the screen resistor, right? Or the screen node, right? I'm trying to remember like 2 or 3 weeks back in my past. It's hard to do. I forget what happened yesterday. So I want to, as I mentioned earlier, I want to do all of these videos live. I want to try to show you kind of the pain, like Andy does, of building these things. I guess since I have them here, I can kind of show how I have the chassis made for me, because they're not cut out or drilled or anything. So I have this guy. I don't have this guy. I have a gentleman that you can find on Reverb, but he makes these chassis out of the 2mm. It's whatever the thick stuff is, the 0.08 or whatever. It's the thick stuff. It's like the real deal. And he will put the holes in there for you if you want the holes. And of course the IEC. And the IEC is the big one. The part to do this right here is $600. It's a $600 part. And I like things to be perfecto. Muy perfecto. And then I can also pay him to put in the little ferrules as well for this thing. So for $100, that's what you get. And then what I'm going to try this time is, instead of using the Unibits, the Unibits are a bitch and a half. Let me tell you. So these guys here, the Unibits, these Christmas tree bits, whatever some people call them, these things are a pain in the butt. They work. Don't get me wrong. Ups and downs. Okay, yeah. Yeah. No, the cathode bypass on V1 is a big one. Most amps use the 25 UF, and the 25 UF is probably a little on the big side. Just a little on the big side. Most women would say it's too big. Just kidding. So what I'm going to go this time to try to drill these holes, and I have to do some tests, is I got one of these bits here. So these are those, they got the carbide things in them, and it's got the center pilot dealio, so I can just drill kind of a small hole, and then I'll stuff it in there, and hopefully, ow, that thing's actually sharp. So that's the hope anyway. We'll see how that goes. My hope is that this thing here will provide me a much cleaner and a more accurate hole. It's very difficult to drill a line of holes along here and have them be like minute. So just so you guys know, like when I try to build an amp, I am shooting for 64th inch of accuracy. So I would like my holes, I like everything within the chassis and the cabinetry and all that stuff to be within a 64th of an inch. That's my goal. That is extremely difficult to do, by the way. I know it doesn't sound like it's that difficult because, you know, 64th of an inch you can see with the naked eye, but when you got a CNC machine that's accurate to within 100th of an inch, and all that jazz, I mean, a 64th of an inch to do something by hand is pretty dang good, I think. So that's what I try to do. Static sounding buzz when it's pushed. Static sounding buzz when it's pushed. And it's a champ, so there's literally only two stages, right? So you go into one tube, it goes through the little tone thing, it goes into a second tube that then pushes the output tube. Are you still going with a 6v6? If you're still going with a 6v6 and you've got the first stage tuned down enough, and when I say tuned down, I'm talking like you went from a 25 UF down to say like a 5, 4, 3, or 2. Oh, hiss. But when you start getting down to like 1 UF, it'll start tightening up quite a bit. Like it'll be on the verge of too thin sounding, not enough bass, but it'll still have quite a bit of push or quite a bit of gain. The second stage, I believe in an original champ, yours is not an original champ though, but the second stage is usually not bypassed. So I'm trying to think, most all amps don't use a large enough grid stopper in the output section. I think most of them use like a 1.5K for the grid stopper on like the 6v6 or whatever the heck it is. That's not enough. It's never been enough. You should be running closer to like at least a 6.8K, if not a 10K on the low end, and you can go up as high as it takes to get the blocking distortion out. Another thing that you can do, it crackles. That is blocking distortion for sure. Basically, it's pounding the freaking whatever the next stage is or the output tube. It's pounding it to the point where it just stops. It will, what they call blat. It'll blat out. Yeah, if it's a buzz, I don't know. I don't think you've mentioned anything about bad like hum or noise or anything like that. But if you slam an output tube with too much, it'll blat, is what they call it. So it just sounds like a blatty distortion, just like bleh. That's why you call it blatting. Go from a 0.1, 0.1 UF down to like a 0.047. So have it almost 470K. Okay, hold on, I'm reading. 470K into 3 6v6. 3? Where are you getting 3? I would say whatever your coupling cap is. If it's a 0.1, have it down to 0.047. That won't lose too much bass. You'll go from like 7 hertz down to, I don't know, probably like 30 or 40 hertz or something like that, I think is what it adds up to. With a 6v6, you have a total of 500K from the grid to ground, and that includes whatever's in the bias circuit. A champ is generally cathode biased, so usually it's a 200, 400 ohm, so less than 1K. But if your grid stopper is 470K and your grid leak is 100K, that's too much. It can get into thermal runaway, or bias runaway, excuse me. Can. Not that it will, but it can. So with the output section, you can go generally pretty big with them. But when you're using really, really large coupling caps, so 0.1, you can't go large enough on the grid stopper to stop it from doing what it does. 100K after the volume, not before. Okay, that's fine. So that's going into the next stage, right? So you have a gain stage, and then it goes into the output section. So you're not using a master volume style thing. So you've got triode 1. Let me go in the other order. Triode 1, so it looks in the right for you guys. Triode 1, triode 2, and then you've got the output tube. So you got a volume between these two here. And the output tube, you still need a grid stopper for that. 10K, I would start there. Go from 0.1 down to like a 0.047 and see how you like that. I don't know, man. The only reason I don't think bad solder is that it only does it when you spank on it, right? Generally, a bad tube or a bad solder joint will do it kind of all the time. Or, maybe, I guess it depends. So, I know that you were kind of breaking some rules before. I think it was it you or Riley? I can't remember. But there was somebody that was using like this ridiculously high, like screen grid resistor value. It can't be that high. You just want like a 5 to 10 volt difference between the plates and the screen grid. Generally, you just want the screen grid just to be just anything below whatever the plate voltage is. So it won't hurt to go through and just touch every joint with the gun, or the iron, excuse me. Do that, get that dialed in, make sure that you know for a fact that nothing's shorting out or doing something it's not supposed to. But generally with the champ style amps, they just have there's too much bass going through them, so they blat out. So that's where I would start, is just using lower coupling cap values. As you've already found, the bypass cap definitely makes a huge difference. And that's mainly because it determines how much bass is getting amplified through that first stage. Too much of a good thing is still too much. Some amps will handle it, and then you can tame it down in later stages. Some will do it on the coupling cap that goes to the next stage. Some will do it somewhere later down the line. It's all about the staging. And then Andy is like the personal amp assistant, remote amp assistant. He should have one of those, what do they call them? Like the handyman trucks, the remote, the mobile handyman, if you will. Every person, okay. V1. 2.2 UF is probably a good value, to be honest. That'll probably get you right down to the lowest fundamental of most guitars, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure it's got to be right close to 80 hertz, if not a little bit lower than that. So that's not a bad value right there. 1 UF is generally pretty good. Some of that depends on the bias. So 1.5K, if you change it to say 2.7K, that will alter it a little bit. But the corner frequency on the low end between a 1.5 and a 2.7K isn't going to shift like a whole octave or anything like that. So 1 UF is a good starting point, because it's pretty much right down to like, I think it's like 500 or 200 hertz or something like that. It's down low enough that it gets the point across. And then when you get to 2 UF, that basically doubles it. So you're definitely down into the 80 hertz range. So The only other places where it can blat out or have blocking distortion would be in the next, or the intermediate gain stages. So there's only one other gain stage to go. And if you're using a 0.1 there, like they did in the original, that's too high, way too high. 0.022, start there, be done with it. Like 0.022 is perfect because in most amps with the way that they attenuate things, it works it out to right around 80 hertz. It just works every time. And then the coupling cap going into the power tube, the 6v6, definitely 0.01 or 0.1, excuse me, is hard to get away with. I'm using a 0.1 actually in this. Riley's probably shitting a brick right now. I'm using a 0.1 in the Peacemaker here, but it's neutered down enough earlier on that I'm just using basically the PA to amplify the rest of things out. So it does what it's supposed to. Hold on, Dad. I think you need the help. Boop. That's funny. A trick to get those to pop back out. If tape doesn't work, use a vacuum. But make sure you use the vacuum that has like the little slide thing on it so that you can control how much of it there is. And obviously you need to size it down so it's not bigger than your dust cap, but you start with it on there, you kind of turn on the vacuum real quick, and it'll usually just pop it right back out. Obviously you don't want to go in there full bore because then you'll just punch right through, but that's a trick. I used to have to do that. Or you can take like a 1-inch tube and then you just suck through it, and you can generally get enough suction to help pull it out too. That works for dust caps. Especially if they're paper ones or the Mylar ones. When they're mesh style, that gets a little more difficult, but then again, you just use like a needle or something like that, and that'll generally get them. If it is a speaker, it's hard to say. I don't know. It's really, really difficult for a 5-watt amp to push a speaker into a degree where it'll get into that kind of trouble. So I don't know what speaker you're using, but open E is the worst. I think you're coming up on blocking distortion, to be honest. That's my best guess, but that's why you kind of start with the stock values and then work back from there. Most of the time with these classic amps, they're generally too bassy. They got a lot more bass than they need. And the reason that they did it back then was that because it was an all-purpose amp. Like they want to say that it was meant for guitar, but most of them had an accordion input and a high and a low input, and it was basically rhythm and lead guitar or guitar and bass and then accordion. That's why they made them so bassy, is because it was meant to be a full range amplification device. So whatever was being plugged into it would be amplified at full range. They were not meant to distort though. What do we like as guitarists? We like things to distort, so we crank them all the way up. Well, that's where you kind of get some of these things that you love about a guitar amp or dislike about a guitar amp. And it just happens to be that some of these amps, when you dime them up, they just do the thing. Yeah. 470. Yeah, that'll work. That's a little high though. You still probably, I think 470, you're going to probably want to put like a bypass cap over the top still to get some of the highs to let through. Anything above quarter volume, it's blocking distortion, dude. That's my bet. Lower the coupling caps. Just try it, see what you think. Whatever value they are now, cut it in half. So if you're using 0.047s, go 0.022s. If you're using 0.1s, go 0.047s. I think you'll find that you got to go down to 0.0. If they're 0.1s now, if you go down to 0.022, you won't really notice that much bass loss. What you'll notice is it still sounds full. It'll tighten up a little bit, and you might get rid of most all, if not all of the blocking distortion. Maybe. I don't know. I wish I could hear it. If I could hear it, I could tell you right away, but parallel 8 to 4 ohm at the moment. Oh, I see. Okay. So you're using a dual 12. Ha, there's a shirt in your search there. Andy, you would. How rude. Oh, you guys, I honestly can't wait until next week. I'm kind of getting excited now. It's starting to sink in a little bit now that we're talking more about these amps and stuff like that. It's like, I wish I could do more work on the amps, not so much the cabinets. I'm pointing over it where it's roughly at over there, but cabinets are fun. So, story time. A big part of the reason why I focus so much energy on the cabinetry is that nobody sees the innards of the amp. Like, you build this thing and you put all this energy into the inside of this amp, and most of the time you never see it. 8 ohm only. Okay. Right? So it's like, it's almost pointless to do all the beautiful stuff on the inside. And then they put it in this black box with this big black face on the front, and then they just put a white logo or a gold logo or whatever the heck it is that says Marshall, Ignator, or, you know, whatever, Friedman. You know, it's a big black box and it's got this amp in there. And everybody always goes onto the interwebs and goes, check out my gut shots, right? Like, check out this high gain amp and how cool it looks on the inside. And it's bullshit because it doesn't look all that great. And especially these new ones, they're nice layouts because it's nicer than the crap that they do with like the Fenders and some of these other cheapo amps that use PCBs, you know, like the Ignator tweaker over there or whatnot. Sure, it looks great because it's a hybrid amp. It's a PCB based turret board style amp, except for they use eyelets now. So everybody likes to think that that's the bee's knees. You've seen it on Rift amps recently. He had a problem with one. It turned out it was just a bad solder joint. That's what you get with the real show. That's what you get with the solder that they have to use in order to sell these amps worldwide. Those amps are made in China. I hate to tell you, those amps are made in China. They're shipped back to America. And yeah, sure, maybe Dave actually touches each one. Maybe he actually physically plays a guitar through each one. But what are they using in order to make it so it's a worldwide amp? It's ROHS certified, it's CE certified, etc., etc. It is unleaded solder. Unleaded solder is bullcrap. It does not work. Absolute bullshit. You cannot use that stuff and have an amp that's going to last 20, 30, 40 years. It will not work, period. You have to use the good stuff. And I can't remember where the frick I put it. There it is. It's hidden behind my screens, my monitors. I got 2 monitors up here, by the way. So I got one that shows is monitoring me, and then I got other ones showing the chat. This stuff here. Get this stuff. There we go. It's the number 44 model. I get the 1 pound spools. This one, I'm on the last layer. You can just see I just started eating into the plastic bobbin there. I've had this for about a year. So I've got a brand new one sitting there. But you see there, it says PB. You got to get the leaded stuff. The 0.031 millimeter, it's good. It's fine. It's the intermediate size. It's not super thin. It's not super thick. Whatever this is what you want to get. For what we're doing, this is the stuff. Period. Don't use that Radio Shack shit. I tried using that stuff before. I actually have what's left of my spool from 15, 20 years ago. It's 6040 rosin core. You know, this is the stuff I used to use. 0.032, same shape. It's the same. But this stuff does not compare. Does not compare to this stuff here. Period. Just saying. All right. I quit using this when I started building amps because I started seeing that I was having problems. And as I was watching Psionic Audio, and he was showing that stuff there. You know, the Kester 44, and that's the stuff. I know Andy likes the 6337. A pound is a lifetime. I go through a lot of solder. I don't know what it is. MG Chemicals. Ugh. Oh, you heading out there, Riley? Well, oh, Or a short circuit heading out. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm catching up now. Sorry. Alrighty, Andy, you take care. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. So it's just you and me, guys. I that's just my experience. I like the 60-40 is just a good up the middle blend. The 6337 is just a little bit harder to melt. And I think he doesn't like using the rosin core stuff either. The rosin definitely helps it flow faster, and you don't have to pre-treat things. I used to try to pre-treat the joints. It was too tedious, and it didn't really help anything, especially when you're using rosin core stuff anyway. Heat really just kind of does it. I find that running a little bit hotter than you think is generally a little bit better, because it just gets the heat in there and you get out, right? When you run the heat just a little bit too cold, you have to think of the turret or the eyelet or the wire or the part, whatever it might be, as a heat sink. So if it's just on the verge of being, maybe just the right temperature for what you're trying to do, as soon as you put the iron on the part sucks all the heat out, which means you end up sitting there with the iron on it and you're waiting for that solder to melt and then flow and bond, right? Well, it takes long. It takes a long time, and anything over 400 degrees or whatever Fahrenheit is hot. Like, it's freaking hot. So it doesn't take long for everything else around it to just start soaking up all that heat and getting hot. So if you set the iron just a little bit hotter than you need it to be, I think I go for 735. I think most end up between, 5 and 600 or something like that. I shoot it for 735. That's what my meter says. I don't know if it's true or not. I haven't calibrated it. I don't know. 735 on my iron feels right. That's what it does. You get it on there, it gets hot, it melts almost right away, and you get out of the way. You just get out of there. When you're using wire that's PVC coated, you wanna literally get the part hot, get the solder on there, touch the wire in, and have it just flow and melt around, glob, and be done. If you're sitting there for more than 10 or 15 seconds waiting for solder to melt or for the solder to flow, it's just gonna melt the wire. You're never gonna get it. You're never gonna get it. It's really, that's a 100-watt gun. Yeah. 100-watt gun is definitely where it's at. Adjustable heat is definitely the best. If you have just one of those old school style ones, these old, like I literally have a Radio Shack one here. I have everything in my drawer right in front of me. Like, that's how I roll. So this one's a 50-watter, but it's adjustable. It goes from 20, 30, 40, or 50 or whatever. And you can see what kind of tip I was using on it. This one is my beast. I turn it all the way up to 50, and that's what I use to do chassis and stuff with. But if you're using one of these, it's like a fixed wattage. Like, it's literally, you just plug it into the wall and you're done. Those ones are dangerous because they usually are too hot. Like a 20 or 30 watt iron is generally what you need. And that's what this one here is. So this is just a Radio Shack style one, and this is an ECG. My apologies. It's a 25 watter. This one works great. It works pretty good, but it's just a little too long. Like 30 watts would be perfect to do like the normal turret boards that we use. That's been my experience. I got a Yihua. It's the D, hold on, let me get this stuff put back away down here. My apologies. It's the D, what is that model? It's the 939. I'm sorry. The Yihua, and it's Y-I-H-U-A, Yihua 939D plus. It's adjustable temperature, works great. I love it. It's been one of the better soldering stations I've ever had. A friend of mine got me another one. It's a Harbor Freight model. It's 100 watt, and it also adjustable temperature. I haven't used it yet, but it seems to have all the same exact features and stuff and all the fun stuff like the Yihua does. I have not yet tested it because I'm waiting kind of for that thing to blow up on me. I will have to say That thing, the Yihua that I got, the 9.3, it was like 89 bucks. I want to say that thing has been on literally probably a year straight in time, like the amount of time it's been on. I've built 1, 2, 3, 4, like half a dozen amps with that thing or more. Probably more than a half a dozen amps, because I've done repairs. We've got the Cerberus here. I've done all that kind of stuff. And the amps, of course, I'm usually prototyping them, so they come apart a lot. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on that thing, and it just keeps going. So adjustable is definitely where it's at. You have to, if you're going to do this and you want to make it serious, you're going to have to get adjustable, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. So just do it. Yeah. It's cold. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, because, yeah, you press the trigger. Yeah, those are the interesting ones. I haven't had the trigger style ones. I've used them in the past, the 100 waters with the big old, like, the zigzag. Not zigzag, but you know what I mean, like the wire that comes in and out. Those ones are scary. I've used a couple of the Weller, like, adjustable, you know, soldering stations. They're great. They're nice. It mostly comes down to the tip that you use. Let's see if I can get it over here. This one, I've worn it out so much that this thing doesn't even stay up anymore. Like, I have to just pinch it and hold it in there. But this tip has been on there since I bought this thing. Focus. This tip is at least 2 or 3 years of age, and it's done pretty good for me. It's probably right about the time to replace it. But the other thing that I use, and this is not a good example here, but you got to clean your tip. You must clean your tip, all right? So get the tip cleaner. That helps a lot. This one is done. Like, I've been stretching this one out much longer than I need to. When I start these other builds, I'll replace it with the new one. But I order them like 5-6 months in advance. As soon as I start getting about halfway through, I'll order another pair. So I got a whole new roll of Kester sitting there ready to go, and I got a whole new thing of, you know, the Brillo pad stuff. Okay. Are you using the copper, or what are you using for that? Because there is a difference. The tip material does make a difference. The shape makes a difference. You don't want to go too thin at the tip because you're always thinking about the heat. So if you want to get in and get out, a big tip, that fat tip, like the 50 water that I showed you with that big old wedge on it. Like, when you need to get heat in there and you just want to blob the solder in and be done with it, that's the only way to do it, is a big fat tip. If you're trying to be finite, you know, you're working on like a PCB board for like a laptop or something like that. Obviously that one, you need something that's just like, boop, right? Needle accuracy. Doing these amps here, a medium-sized tip, you know, one that's just kind of, you know, if your finger's one and your pinky's the other, you're going for the pinky on that one. So they work pretty good. Okay. Oh, for SpaceX jobs, yeah. Copper is great as a conductor for that. They work great for those. I think these tips here are copper with nickel plating on them or something initially. The nickel plating wears off really quickly. But if you keep them clean and tinned, they do pretty good. Like I say, that one's lasted me way longer than I thought it should have. Somewhere here, I actually have the little bag that it came with of different tips, and I've only used this other one once. I think maybe it was that I was using it in a different iron at some point. And you can see it's just a little bit bent, actually. But yeah, it's hollow in the inside, so it has the element that goes in through it. I think I was using this with something else, and now I'm not. But I have another tip here, this one, that's brand new. This is the style that I like to use. You can kind of get an idea of what it is. But yeah, it's like nickel plated, you know, whatever, copper. I'm sure it's copper. And then I've got, this one's the big fat wedge tip. This is the one that most people try to use, is these wedge tips. These are dangerous. Be careful with those. I've got 2 of those, and then I've got another really fine one. I don't think I've actually ever used it. No, I did use this one at one point. So I did some other project at some point in time where I needed to use a needle point. This is too small. Whatever that is, it's too small. So these are kind of the range there. The one on the right is too small. The one on the left is just right. Just saying. And then, of course, I got those other, you know, like the chisel tips and stuff like that. I don't really use those much. But I've got a couple spares. I'll probably order some more here again soon. But that one's lasted me so long, I don't really worry about it. And then I've got the other soldering kit in there too. So I'm in a good place at the moment. I'm in a good place. I cannot complain. Where are we at here? Got to get yourself one of these as well. I picked up a DeWalt. This thing is badass. Loving it. And then you got one of these guys. I got all kinds of tools in front of me. I kid you not. So I have so my bench is like a Husky, like multi-drawer thing. It's the best freaking tool I've ever got, to be honest. It's exactly the same width as my CNC table. It's perfect. I love it. I'm spoiled rotten. I like expensive tools. I like using nice things. So I was talking about it in another video before, but you know, like I use the vessel stuff. Ooh, it glows blue. Look at that. Ha ha! I got the coolest tools. I'm easy to please. How's that? No wonder why the wife hates me. I have a thermistor and cart. Is this the correct one? Oh boy. I can tell you right now what model you probably need to get. For most amps, and we're talking anything that's probably 18 to 50 watts, CL80. Just a CL80. I freaking just stashed them all away too, so I'd have to dig them out in order to show you. But there's a CL80 or a CL90, and they're honestly just about the right size for any given amp in the normal ranges that we work within. So the 20 to 50 watt range. When you start getting into the 100 watt range, you probably should use, I believe it's a 2035 or something like that. Thermistors are great. I'm actually using one in the Cerberus. I'm using a CL80 in the Cerberus. It's a 50 watt amp. Go figure, right? It works pretty good. Note to self. CL80. Okay, DigiKey. Let me see what that is. I don't want to leave. Go to site. Whatever. Hold on. I don't understand. Go to site. In stock, 7,000. CL90. Yeah. I wouldn't go with the CL90. I would go with a CL80. CL80 will work. So you're like that close. So I think the difference between them is that one drops a little more voltage than the other. So like one has a little more current or something like that, or requires more current to flow. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's 120 ohm for the CL90. I don't know what the CL80 is, but I think it's like lower ohms, right? So the lower the ohms you got, the more current that's going to flow through that part, right? 120 ohms for a 30 watt amp. And if that's what you got, that's fine. A CL80 or CL90 are so close, I think they'll work for most anything we're doing. So I would say if you're going to buy one or two of these, buy one or two of the CL80s just in case. But let's see here. So what it is that when you have less current draw, right? So you have a lower wattage amp, you need something with a lower ohms to get the same amount of heat in that thermistor. CL80, Charlie Lima 80, yes. Or did I mix up my things? Is it Charlie Lima? It's Charlie Luke 80, yes. And then this, I think the CL90 is the slightly higher ohms one, which means that with a higher drawing amp, it will just reduce the amount of draw on it. Amphenol, okay. Go to site. Until you see inrush. Yep. 58 to 347 degrees. It gets freaking hot, by the way. Just be aware that you need to have some space around them. They do get like hot enough that it smells like it's burning almost. It's a little freaky at first until the smell kind of dissipates a little bit. Yep. That makes sense. Here's another downside to them, just so you know. If you don't have any tubes in the amp, right? So let's say you're firing it up without any tubes in it, it will not fire the thermistor. So you'll have to short the thermistor with the jumper in order to test with no tubes in the amp. That's kind of the scary thing about them, or the downside about them, is that they require current draw in order to get the heat in them. That's why they make the different values to make it so that way you can do all that crap. You know what I mean? You get it? I know you get it. You understand what I'm saying. I'm gonna not worry about that. We're gonna go here. We're gonna get rid of that. Okay, cool. So yeah, CL80 or CL90, I'm sure is gonna work just fine. They're so close, within a few ohms of each other. But just know that if you're going to have a higher current drawing amp, you need to use a higher ohm value device. 3 amp, whereas the CL is a 2 amp. Oh, it might be, no. Okay, so if the only difference between them is 3 and CL80 is only 47 ohms. Yeah, so it's, yeah, it flows more current. I'm using a CL80 for this one, so to give you an idea, that works great for a 50 watt amp. You're not gonna go wrong with either one, though. I'm telling you right now. 2 amp is enough. It's more than enough, because I highly doubt you're gonna pull more than 3 amps. That's a lot of current. I mean, a 100 watt amp is maybe pulling what, 150, 200, 300 watts at most. That's not even, it's like a quarter of an amp, right? So go with the CL90. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna work. I tell you right now, it's gonna work. So if you have them in the cart and you haven't made the purchase yet, I'd get both just for S's and G's. But if you're confident with it, I'd say run with it. You're going to be fine. I know that over there on the other side of the globe, you guys pull less current than we do over here in the States. So it might work just fine. Obviously, wattage-wise, rating-wise, the 2 amp versus 3 amp, the CL90 is going to be teats, man. Cereal. You get the CL90, you'll be happy either way. I only use them in amps that don't use tube rectifiers. And it's probably smart to use them in amps that do use tube rectifiers anyway, but it's just a way to soften the blow when you turn them on, especially if you're going to start trying to use solid state rectifiers with a butt ton of capacitance behind it. I say once you get beyond 200 UF of capacitance, you better be using a thermistor of some sort of slow, slow buildup of voltage, or you are going to spank the ever-living shit out of those things. They are not going to last long. And volume. Like the volume put is a grid stops if it's not all the way up. Well, so you have to think of it like this. A volume pot is not much more than a voltage divider, right? So you can emulate a pot just by using 2 different value parts. So you got your one that comes in, let's say it's a 470, and then you use a 470 to ground. What that will do is it will cut the amount of gain coming from that first stage in half. A 470 and a 470 reduces whatever gain is coming out of that first stage by half. So you go from that to this. So if you were to measure that in volts, it doesn't work out like you think it does. So if you got 10 volts coming out of your first tube, it doesn't cut it down to 5 volts. That's not how dB works. But you go from what would it be, like 10 dB down to 5 dB, whatever it might be. So if it pops going into that next stage, then it's spanking the next stage hard enough Not knowing what voltage you're running, I couldn't tell you for sure. I know that you got a higher voltage amp. So when you start running higher voltages, you've got a lot more snap to it. You got a little more zing. So it will spank a little bit harder on the next stage. 5x3, yeah. Honestly, so I don't like getting much above 350 volts on any of my preamp tubes. No, it does not. It doesn't act like a grid stopper. It's at lower volumes, obviously it does, because that's what it is doing. But when you think about it, when you roll the volume all the way up, you have a 1 meg resistance to ground and no resistance going into the next stage. So it might be that with a 1 meg pot, it's got enough, variance from ground to, it acts like a grid leak, right? So it's got enough variance from grid to ground to spank it hard enough. Well, if you go with a 500 K pot as opposed to a 1 meg, yes, it's half the voltage, right? Because it's half the value. So yes, at lower volumes, it will obviously reduce the amount of gain. And at full volume, it will reduce the amount of gain. But it's not a grid stopper at that point. When you go full volume, it's going straight through the pot. It's only that 500K to ground now, not the 1 meg. Now it's a 500K. So yeah, there is more grid leak, but that grid leak may not be enough. It does not act like a grid stop. You still need to have some sort of a grid stopper, generally. 100K is usually enough. Maybe a 1 meg for that amp. I don't know, again, what your voltages are. That might be too much still. You cannot think of a volume pot as a grid stop. It is not a grid stopper. It is a variable volume pot, a variable resistor network. And so at lower volumes, yeah, it might be 500K on this end and only 10K on the other side. Well, that wouldn't be right either, but 490K going into the tube and 10K to ground, which means it's really acting like a grid stop in that regard, and it's leaking a bunch of stuff off out of the circuit, right? That's how that kind of works. But that's why it also changes the frequency response as you turn it up and down. That's why the 1 meg is usually preferable, because it has a little less interaction over its sweep. And you get a little bit wider of a sweep too, because it's a larger range. So what you can do if you need to control how much gain you have, you can use a 1 meg pot, and then you use like a 470 or a 1 meg grid leak, another grid leak after the pot. What that does is it kind of sets that corner frequency a little bit better, because as far as the grid is concerned, it still always has that 1 meg grid leak there. It does change that interaction between the pot, all right? So when you roll it all the way down, now you've kind of got like a 500K in essence, but you can use that to play with it. But a grid stopper is a grid stopper, and it generally works best with all grid stoppers if they are directly on the grid of the tube. So do know that. Like a grid stopper anywhere in line, so you can put it before the volume pot. You can put a grid stop before the volume pot, and it will work like a grid stopper still in that position. It works a little more variably, which is nice sometimes. It does work. But it is always best to have the grid stopper on the grid of the tube if you're having a problem that is, grid stopper related. Blocking, distortion, oscillations, noise, radio frequencies, whatever, getting into that tube. So that's why they usually do the grid stopper right on the grid. Just FYI. If you're spanking it that hard, again, not knowing what voltages there are, yeah, drop it down to a 500 and see if it gets better. If it doesn't get better, that's not your problem. It's blocking, distortion still, and you need a grid stopper or another grid leak prior. So something like a 470K grid leak or a 1 meg grid leak to set that pace, and then a grid stopper to just control the current flow in. Again, it's still going to come down to the size of your coupling cap. So if you're using a 0.1, you're going to have to step it down. That's the only other way to get rid of blocking distortion, is to just dump it. And it's a good way to test and see if your current problem is related to blocking distortion. So if you have a 0.1 and you drop it down to a 0.022, like that's a pretty large difference. It's like 1/4, right? 0.022 to 0.1, that's like 1/4 the amount. So with that, it should stop any kind of blocking distortion you have. If it still doesn't, then try going down a little bit lower, like 0.001, right? You've literally gone like to 1/100th or something like that of it. But if it still blats with a 0.001, then you know that it's a different problem. It's not blocking distortion, it's something else. Okay. So 100K is an amount for blocking, for grid stopper, excuse me, but it's not necessarily high enough. So 100K might solve some issue, but it won't solve all of it. That's why you'll generally see 470K on some tubes. Not saying that's where you need to go. I don't know what you mean with the 470K right at the 6v6 grid. You should not need to have more grid leak. I hope you're not using 470K as the grid stopper. Here's why. The grid to ground is limited to about 500K. So if you're using 470K as a grid stopper at the 6v6, that means you can only have about 20 or 30K to ground, right? And that includes your 200 ohm or 150 ohm cathode bias resistor, if that's what you're using, right? It's grid to ground. So generally 100 to 220 or 250K. You can get away with a 470K for the grid leak. And now that I'm thinking about it a little bit, if you're using 470K as a grid leak, and let's say you're using a 10K on the grid itself, like literally as a grid stopper, you're like right at the maximum that's allowable. Take that 470, drop it down to a 220. With a 220, you've reduced obviously the amount of drive going into the output tube, which will help a bit too. So do inform me if that 470K is the grid leak or the grid stop, because I can tell you right away where your problem is if that's the case either way. I can tell you right now, 470 is probably a little too big. I would go with 220 as a grid leak, and I would go with at least a 10K for the grid stop. And when I say grid stop, I mean a 10K literally right on the pin of the grid going to your coupling cap, which if it's a 0.01, dumb it down to a 0.047 or 0.022. Try that. Grid stop. Too big. Will not work. Can't do it. Too much. Will not work. You are in the danger zone. Don't do that. So you have to follow the rules still. So the spec sheets for a 6v6 will tell you in the thing that the grid to ground value when running in cathode bias is 500 meg, or it'll tell it to you in relation to 1 meg, but so it'll say 500 or 0.05 or whatever the heck it is. But that means 500K, period. So that's the most amount of grid to ground difference that you can have. So if you're using a 470K and a 470K, you've got over 1 meg, it could be that your tube is just, I can't pull up the schematic. The one that he's doing, it doesn't matter if he has negative feedback or not. Because if he had it negative feedback and it was in the wrong polarity, he would get oscillation anyway. I can tell you right now. Well, you haven't told me what size coupling caps you're using yet. What size coupling caps are you using? They are important, but they're not. I know he's using higher voltages in this amp, but he said that the ones that, if I recall correctly, they are very close to the voltages that are for this amp. It's a different model of 5F1. It's not a 5F1. It's a slightly different version that uses a little bit higher voltage. It's kind of an oddball. It's not like the popular 5F1, but at one point he was using like this ridiculously high 0.022. Okay, stock. That's a fine value. That's great. Okay, get rid of that 470. Go with a 10K. Reduce your grid leak to 220. So whatever your grid leak is to your power tube, reduce it down to 220. That will put you in a very, very safe window. You're still going to have plenty of shit and get pushing the output tube. And see if that improves things. So the grid stop AA764, 355. Yeah, the AB764 is 420. And that's, you have the AB764, which is the 420 volts. So that 420 volts is pretty spanky. So that means you probably got 300 and something volts going to your preamp tubes, which means you're really spanking things. If you're really, really spanking things, yeah, blocking distortion is still going to be a thing. That 470K as a grid stop isn't going to work. Why are you flirting with married women? I'm not flirting with married women. It's been a freaking sausage party over here for the last hour. What are you talking about? Where you been? And I'm pretty sure you're not actually Money Talks because your thing is wrong. Let's see here. Let's just double check because I can tell right away. Okay, you actually are Money Talks. I recant what I just said. My apologies. But no flirting of married women over here. I'm married myself, so. I wish you could check this stuff in real time. 10 kb plus drop down to something larger. That might help a little bit. 22K is common for the preamps and a lot of the Fender amps. 10K, I would expect maybe a 20 to 30 volt drop over it with the amount of current draw that you have with that one tube there. With a 22K, you'll drop maybe 50 or 60 volts total. And I think that's a little more realistic. When you start getting over 330 volts on a 12AX7, it starts going in a different direction, is what I'll say. I kind of feel like 330 this is a me opinion. It's not like gospel or whatnot, but 330 volts is kind of, to me, an ideal, voltage for the phase inverter of most amps. And then when you get, hey, there's Colby. No, I've got my maker's mark. Why do you say I like redheads? Because I'm married to one, that's why. Why do you think I like redheads? Because I'm married to one. Do the carpets match the drapes? I'm not going to tell you. It's only for me to know. So, when you start getting down, so above 330 volts on any of the preamp tubes, including the phase inverter, it just starts getting a little different. It just plays a different game. And it's not one that I'm familiar with. I just noticed that there's more problems. They have less bass, more highs. They're generally a little bit stouter, more staccato, like sharp, right? But they're also more prone to problems. premature wear, etc., etc. 330, they start getting into that sweet zone. It's a good number. Like, it's a good value just in and of itself for anything that's phase inverter related. And then, of course, as you start getting towards the preamp, like anything that's around 180 volts on the plate side, or on the B plus side, not on the actual plate, but 180 volts to something like 250 volts is like, honestly, the magic zone. I like my preamps, and I use a parallel triode, of course, for most of my amps. 312 volts. Like, that's my magic number for me. If I get 312 volts on my V1, that's where I'm happiest. So that's obviously a me thing. That's not everybody else's thing. So for me, that works. But 250 volts is just fine. But anything above 330, it starts acting weird. It does different. That's in my experience with them, though. Not everybody has the same way. Not everybody feels the same way. Dumble is one known for slamming them with voltage. I don't like voltage. Voltage is nasty. Too much of a good thing is still too much, right? Too much whiskey, you start slurring your words, you start being a dickwad, and you start hitting on married women or whatever, right? Speaking of which, it's time for some more. But too much voltage, and you start wearing things out. I honestly think the sweet spot for 6v6s is 380 volts. Once you start breaching 380 volts on the plate, you're just fighting. It's downhill from there. Sure, they'll put out more power, and they'll have more of that, that slam to them, but they're not going to last very long. They're just going to burn up, and what good are they if they're burned up, right? When you start getting too low of a voltage, though, there is a problem with that as well. So too low of a voltage will actually induce oscillations. So you got to be kind of careful in that regard as well. So you got to go extremely low, though. We're talking like ridiculously low. So if most all amps are rated at the 250 volt mark, as kind of like their thing that they use in the books, that's kind of like the low end, right? 250 volts is just way too low for most anybody in the guitar world, right? Nobody's doing that. They're going to be 300 plus. Well, obviously we're not, so we're not worried about that. But 380 for me with a 6v6 is kind of the end of the line. That's still higher than what I'm using in the Peacemaker here. The Peacemaker, I'm sitting right about 360 volts on the plate. Plate to cathode, I'm at like 340 volts, which to me seems to be kind of a sweet spot for it. So, and I did it differently too. So I went for stock voltages for a 5E3, but instead of using a 5Y3, I went with a 5AR4. So I used a stouter power transformer and used a stouter, other way. I used a lower voltage power transformer that was stouter, so it had more milliamp rating, but lower voltage, and a higher rated or stouter 5AR4, so it drops less voltage than a 5Y3. So I ended up with the same basic stock voltage, but completely opposite in terms of how it got there. So the power supply for mine is stiffer, stouter, meaner, more firm, but I still have the same voltage to achieve that result. So there's all kinds of different ways you can do things. You're always just playing, it's math. It's all freaking math. I try to leave the math out of it because it's boring and nobody cares about the math. But you're kind of finding out, I think, short circuit, that the math is a thing. Like, you're fighting against it, doing what you're doing. And I don't want you to fight against it. I want you to work with it. 420 volts is fine if that's what you're working with. It's just, you got to play by the other rules still. So I would definitely stick as close to stock as you can. Yes, exactly. There's that. So lower voltage, more milliamp rating, firmer. That's how my KT88 is kind of done. Like the the power transformer that I'm using is like 5x the rated need for that amp. So let's say for the volt or for the wattage I'm trying to produce with the KT88s, I might need 250 maybe max. Well, I've got a 575 milliamp rated power transformer at a lower voltage. So it doesn't even know that the tubes are on. Like, you turn the amp on, it just, is anything happening? It doesn't even know that they're there. So there's no voltage drop. I think most power transformers are rated around the 5% mark of drop. So if your power transformer is rated for 100 milliamps, let's just give it a round number, and at rated load, you know, so if it's 100 milliamps and you put 100 milliamps on it, it will drop 5% of its rated voltage. So if it was a 500 volt center tap, whatever, you would drop down whatever 5% might be. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head. But in my case, with the amount of draw I have on it with the KT88s and being so high, it's like less than or right about 1%. So it's literally, it doesn't even know they're there. No, way too high voltage. Can't be done. Not a good idea. The frequency is wrong on them too. The way that they're designed to work, it's just, it wouldn't. Not a good idea. TV transformers, same. They just don't work. They're not right for that. When I say old, or when I say TV transformers, I'm talking like days of yore. Completely different types of tubes. They don't use 12AX7s. They're using like those, most of them are using like the oddball, like crap that we don't even know the definition of anymore. Those old CRTs are using something completely different than what we're used to. But thank you for coming in, by the way. It's nice to see you here. But I'm glad you guys are talking. Talk amongst yourself, please, by the way. I'm glad. Thank you for your banter, by the way, Money Talks. So, I know you were teasing me about hitting on married women, but you have to understand, I can't help it. I'm a beast. They hit on me, by the way. So my plan for the Ignator tweaker. Oh, try cooling off power transformers, making a field coil. Ooh, yeah, no, that's not gonna work. A field coil, that's old school. That's like Supro era stuff or Valco era stuff right there. A magnetron. Yeah, right. If only it worked like that. So the other problem with like those, so generally the higher the voltage, the lower the milliamp rating, right? So you have to think of transformers as always a current to voltage like transformer. So if you start with X voltage on this side and you get X voltage on the other side, the higher that voltage is on the one side, the lower the milliamp rating. Which also then means that anything that's close to that milliamp rating is going to cause it to collapse and draw down more and more voltage to the point where it could even just start vibrating itself apart because there's too much current draw. So it will literally just clamp down all the voltage because it can't pass the current, and it'll just start burning itself up. So most things in America, it's 120 volts in, right? And then it's X number of volts out, right? Let's say it's 100, or let's say it's a 250, 250, right? That's a pretty low value, but whatever. That's a 500 volt to center tap output transformer. Well, that's probably going to be rated more milliamp wise. So let's say 200 milliamps as would a 300, 300 rated for the same thing, right? So the 300, 300 is going to be much bigger than the 250, 250. This guy or Tom. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Money Talks. I know that there's a bunch of other stuff going on in other places. I've been pretty fortunate. It doesn't tend to follow me here. So I know you're used to seeing me on Andy's channel. You don't really see me anywhere else, and I know you guys see me over there all the time on Andy's channel, but a lot of the stuff that goes on there and all the stuff that off the fringes doesn't occur here. So I don't know who the hell Tom is. Like I don't remember Tom at all in my year of hanging out on Andy's channel. So I don't really know the whole story behind that. And I know that there's a lot of transgender channels that have popped up that keep popping in. Not here, but on Andy's channel. They obviously get spanked down pretty quick. So I don't know. I don't need to see Tom. I don't care who Tom is. I do, but I don't. Like, it's apparent that Tom is not a character that is doing too well in our community. And when I say our community, I'm talking like beyond me and into Andy's world. I tend to keep them pretty separated. Andy's world, that is, and myself, only because I try to focus in on amplifiers. I just don't do that other stuff. You know what I mean? We got one that came in earlier. He got, instantaneously freaking slapped the fuck out. Like, just came in, said something, squashed like bug. Just, you're out of here, bro. Done. So a lot of that stuff doesn't happen here. So you don't have to worry about it here. It's a safe space. I'm lefty friendly, even though I'm not a lefty. Like, I'm definitely not a lefty. So I know that you're kind of used to that because you see me over there and I play that game over there. But yeah, trolls don't come here and they don't last long even if they do come here because it's the conversation is pretty pointed. I don't tolerate it either. If I don't tolerate it on Andy's channel, I'm not going to tolerate it here. No, and I'm not saying that, Money. I'm just saying, like, how am I trying to say it? This is my nice way of saying, don't bring the outside world into my world. Because it's not my world. That world over there isn't my world. Andy's thing is Andy's thing. I'm there and I'm playing in his sandbox. So I will play by his rules. When he says don't snag anybody off the channel, I'm not going to do it. And if I do it, it's because there's a good reason. We talk all the time. So just so you know, just so there's no like whatever about it, Andy and I almost talk daily on the phone, like on the phone. So today we did not talk, but I've been busy. He's been busy. So there's no qualms about what's going on in his world or mine. I don't do a whole lot of lives, so I don't get a whole lot of that activity. I don't have as many subscribers as him either. And I tend to keep that stuff out of my, I'm pointed. Like I say, I'm pretty pointed conversation. So I don't really have to deal with that a lot. And I'm lucky in that regard. So you don't have to worry about that as much here. If you see one, let me know. And we'll put the smack down. As you can see, I've got a couple guys that are set up already as moderators. And they're ones I trust that will instantly smack that shit down. Because homie don't play. I'm not the guy that you want as an enemy. I seem pretty passive in moot, if you will. That's by design and by purpose. When I explode, it's scorched earth. Freaking nothing in my path will live, period. It's just, there will be nothing left to speak of when we're done. And there's a reason I don't get that far with it. Yuki, what's going on, man? So, yeah, and I'm more stream friendly in that regard too. I don't cuss a whole hell of a lot, but I do. I haven't had a single, well, now that I say it, I'm going to get it, but I haven't had a single age restriction yet. I just don't play that game. I don't have to worry about it so much. So I appreciate that you're always looking out and stuff like that, but here it's kind of the safe space, if you will. and Yuki, as he knows. We're pretty stream friendly. So thank you for coming in, by the way, too. I'm glad to see you. When I get back from Sweden, you and we need to hang out again, too. I want to take you out to dinner again. So we'll try a different place. I like that place. It was good. But I want to go to a nicer place next time. Yeah, for sure. And thank you again for getting me those guitars. They're both in Andy's, possession now. Just thank you, dude. I had a great time. So just so you know, I had a great time. So it was definitely a good hang. So as far as I know, Sweden doesn't really like Americanos that much. I don't know how violent it is there. I know it's one of the safer places in the world of all things, but my understanding is they're not too excited by Americanos and the way we do our politics and stuff like that. So I don't know what to expect. I'm going to just try to stay out of the way and just film stuff silently and kind of get as much content as I can. Try not to interact as much as I, normally do in this space here. I will be there from the 21st. I land there on the 21st, and I will be leaving on the 25th. So I'll be there for 4 days. So it's not going to be crazy long. We're going to get there. We're going to go straight to the hotel room. Probably got to go straight to bed because the next morning we're going to meet up with Linus to give him the amp. We're going to spend some time just kind of going over it. We're going to take it apart. Show him how to take it apart, how it works, why it works, and stuff like that, so he can kind of do some self-diagnosis if ever need be. I don't think I'll ever need to, but I'm going to bring some parts with me just in case it doesn't like the voltage over there. I was talking that I'm going to bring this guy with me so we can do any kind of troubleshooting if there is any to do. I've never ran my amp on anything other than 120. It's not meant to run at 240, and we're using not an inverter, but a voltage, whatever. It converts it from the 230 or 240 that they have down to 120. The migrants are the problem. Okay. Well, we're definitely not migrating there. We're just there to chill and enjoy the snow. Apparently it's supposed to snow while we're there. I've only been in the snow, like, I can count on my hand how many times I've actually been in a place where it snowed while I was there. So we'll see how that goes. I love cold weather. I do not like heat. Me and heat do not get along. Florida, I could not live there. Texas, I could not live there. Why I really love where I live is it's the epitome of, or epitome? No, it's epitome. It's the epitome of 68 degrees every day of the year, period. 68 at 68. So 68 degrees at 68% humidity. Straight up. Like, I live in the best spot in America, period. If that's what you're looking for. No four-season crap here. It's raining currently, but the rain that we're getting right now is like maybe 1 out of 5 times a year. Hopefully not a capacitive dropper. To deliver an amp. Yes, I'm going to Sweden to deliver an amp. Not just any amp, but this amp. So this guy right here, the Peacemaker, there's a whole series on it. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump the thing there. There's been a whole series on this guy. This guy is going to Sweden, and I am hand delivering it to the winner. So we did that giveaway, and the gentleman that won is from Sweden, and I molded over for a little bit. It's one of those sort of deals, and I don't want Linus to feel bad about anything, so just understand that what I'm telling you is kind of the story. When I first did the thing, I didn't think about the fact that I was talking to the world, right? It was just, I built an amp, and I built it for 120, right? Because why would anybody anywhere else in the other part of the world want to win this thing, right? That's what I understand, is everybody, it's mostly English speaking over there. Hey, Andy's back. All the filters. Woohoo! There you go. So I just built it with 120, thinking, why would anybody? And then I tried to tamp it down, like realizing later on as I got past that point of no return that, you know, to reduce the expectation to America only. I feel bad because Dan Bronson was like second place or third place or something like that. He lives in like Minnesota or something like that, or Montana. He's Midwest somewhere. But well, John too. We'll say apologies to John because I know he really wanted to win it. But he slipped through the cracks somehow, and I think it was more or less that he didn't really get the hint that it wasn't meant to be an overseas amps. Riley gave up points because it was kind of determined that it wasn't meant for overseas. Riley, I still owe you a shirt, by the way. And I haven't sent out any shirts yet to anybody, and there's 3 that I need to send out. Well, 2 that I need to... No, 3, because I got second, third place, and Maria. Maria was here earlier. She comes, but I need her to give me her freaking address and shirt size. Riley, I need to get your shirt size as well. I think you said you wanted a medium. You wanted to be tight because you're buff and all for the ladies and stuff, right? Yeah. So Riley gave up some points. And I just didn't think about it. Like, I kind of assumed everybody knew, like, this wasn't going to be a worldwide amp. And then we get all the way to the end. Turns out Linus wins. He's from Sweden, but he does have a way to dumb the voltage down. So we know. That's all we know. That's what this guy's going to be for, to make sure that we can get it in the range. So I mulled over it a little bit. I was just like, you know what? I could be a super freaking dick and be like, no, it's not an overseas. No, period. It's like, we'll just give it to the runner up and whatever. But then the wife is like, no, you're going to be a dickhead if you do that. You didn't actually say that this is not for anybody over the country. That's why I feel bad for Riley. Riley's going to get some justice soon enough. I know he's laughing there, but I'm going to be honest, Riley, there is more coming your way at some point in the future. So you are not forgotten. You will not be left behind. No man left behind. Okay. So I kind of started doing some research on what it would cost to ship it there, this, that, and the other. And it was just like, you know what? Fuck it. It's a sunk cost fallacy at this point. I've already spent, God knows, you're file that lawsuit. You're going to lose. We're in a different country anyway. But, you know what I mean? Like, it was sunk cost fallacy. Like, let's just freaking go for broke. Like, this thing's already cost me a bunch of money, a bunch of time. Let's fucking turn it into a vacation. The wife said, hell yeah, go. You got to deliver it anyway. So it's just like, whatever. No holds bar. We're going to do this. So here we are. We're going to Sweden. And honest to God, I'm super excited. I've already said it before, but I'm super excited. I've never been there before. I've only been out of the country a few times. Multiple times to frickin' Jamaica. Don't want to go there again. I used to travel the country quite a bit, so I've been in just about every state in America, but I've really very rarely ever been out of the country itself. So this will be a cool little treat, and I'm going to try to just make it as fun as I can. So, Andy, you just got to do frickin' more videos, and you got to manage the firkin. It's Stockholm. I don't know the exact area that he lives in. I know that if Stockholm is kind of here, he's down in here. So like, this is the main area of Stockholm. He's down here. That's all I know. Stockholm is pretty big as I understand it. Like, there's a lot of area. I didn't realize how much water there is there and how much public transportation there is. I can literally get from a train where I'm at all the way down into a hub that's only 15-minute walk from where he is within an hour and a half. Lord knows, like, I never thought in a million years. And it's freaking cheap as hell. It's like a 1-to-10 ratio. Or a 10-to-1 ratio. So my dollar is worth 10 of their dollars. So I think it's like $6 for 2 people to travel on a train. Here it would cost an inane amount. Well, you already know. You live here, so most of you live here anyway. So it should be pretty cheap while we're there. Food wise, we kind of checked that out. It doesn't seem like we're going to have any problems finding places to eat. I don't know, whatever. I'll just starve for 5 days and lose some weight that I need to lose. As long as I can get to alcohol, that's all that matters. You've never been out of the country, Colby? I'm going to be honest. I've been out just a few times, handful of times. Every time I leave, I'm always happy to come back. Like, home is where the heart is, as they say. It's very true. Like, if you're used to living in Colorado or Texas or New York or wherever, you get used to it. Riley's probably used to a lot of rain and stuff like that. Couple good Irish bars. Okay. So I was hoping to find some music venues. Apparently the music season's kind of tapered off over there. I was a little bit bummed. Apparently there is a couple of boutique makers in the area. I'm going to try to find them on Monday. So we have one whole day to kind of go just fuck off, right? That's the idea, is just go screw around and see what we can figure out. Saturday is going to be hanging out with Linus. Sunday is kind of a free day. We're going to hang out with Linus and go to a couple museums and just hang out and tour. We're going to tour around, right? Monday is our fuck off day. We're just going to, whatever we can find, we're going to do it. And then we leave Tuesday morning. So Tuesday's kind of a bust in that regard, but go to the ice bar. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Corona is fucked. Okay. I don't know what a Corona is, but if a Corona is 1/10 of $1, if a beer over there is $2 whole, that is cheap AF. The last time I spent $2 on a beer was freaking 15, 20 years ago. I'm used to $8 to $12 a beer now, where I live. So, obviously, if you buy them in the store, it's a little bit different. But when you go to a bar, it's $8 to $12 for a beer nowadays, where I'm at. Currency wise, so I'm fortunate. I don't have my thing with me. I'm going to be able to use Apple Pay the whole way. So it won't cost me any currency conversions. I'm not even going to convert anything. I got a Visa card, a MasterCard, and my Apple card, which is, I think it's a MasterCard if I'm not mistaken. But we're just going to go there. There's no conversion fees. They manage all that shit up just the way they do it. So yeah, I'm going to take that and run. I need to set up my phone next week. It's going to cost me $10 a day or whatever the hell it is to use my phone while I'm there, but whatever. It's just $10 a day. Nothing. We're going to have fun. I want it to be fun. That's my biggest thing. It's just freaking fun. I don't want to stress. I don't want to worry. I don't care what it costs anymore. It's just, we're going to have freaking fun. I might try to do a live. I might shoot it with my phone. But the goal is to collect a lot of content that we can converge into a video that we'll obviously post here for everybody to view. I'm not as enjoyable to watch as Andy is. I don't have the fun stuff that he's got going on. That will change here in the near future. Colby and others, Money Talks, etc. Those of you who don't, end woke insanity, you guys that don't come here too often, what you're used to seeing on Andy's channel will be kind of what, less some of the banter, but I will be doing some lives of building the amplifiers, so you'll get to see more of these things soon enough. So we got this guy here. Do you recognize this? It says it right there. Cerberus. It's coming. It is coming. It is coming. It is coming. And it's going to come with a freaking 8-string, and it's going to be freaking heavy. The goal, so another thing I'm trying to work out too, I want to get so I don't have space in my area. That's why I got this green screen going. I can literally touch the amp behind me. And I don't even really have to lean back, right? So I've got a 3-foot by 3-foot walkway, and it's just a bunch of amp material there, and amps galore back behind me, and speakers and stuff like that. And then directly in front of me is my CNC table, where I also run my laser machine. I have a laser diode machine, not like what Andy has, which is the CO2 style one, but Scoozy. But I just don't have that kind of space, so I have to for me to do drums, I have to use like a software or something like that. I'm gonna look into getting some sort of software so I can try to make more interesting videos, if you will. That's the plan. Anna, hello. Gross. Whatever, Andy. Whatever. Freaking burp. Freaking. You just don't hear it. Like you don't do it. That's how you know it's a real show. You know how you know it's a real show? You burp. That's the thing. Anna, thank you for coming in. This is your first time here? By chance, Anna? I can see the number of concurrent viewers is starting to climb, which is interesting. How do I message you, Andy? Why do you guys always want to talk to Andy? I'm here right now. I'm here right now. I'm just teasing. So, end woke insanity. Sounds like a lot invested. The answer is absolutely yes. So the Peacemaker here is easily $1,500. Easily $1,500 in total parts cost. That includes the wood, the Tolex, all the little parts, stuff like that. And it's only like a 12. Oh, Anna, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming in. So it's not super duper expensive in that regard. Where it's super duper expensive is the time. So it's got 200 hours into it, easily 200 hours. And most of it was in the cabinetry, to be honest. So there's a lot that goes on in the cabinetry for these things. I'll try to show you a little bit more innately, but as you can see, we've got a wood panel in the back with an inlay of the faceplate material. And then of course we got my L, and that is a metal. That's a, metal L. All fits in there. We got leather corners with a leather handle. We've got the fascia pieces, so that's the aluminum that goes around the edging of the amp there, right? Got my name there, right? We got all that. And then we get, that's not even the fun stuff. That's not even the hard part. Inside of the amp, we've got the mirror. Got to have the mirror. You can see that it is walnut inside of the amp, along with some more fascia pieces on the front. And that all fits in there, right? All the way around. So we got all that. And then, of course, the fascia pieces on the front there. And this has the backlight stuff that goes on as well. So that little L that you saw there, that acrylic plate that's in the front, that glows as well. So that the L is illuminated. There is a lot of work that goes into that. A fuck ton of work. That's all I can say. Like, it's inane, the amount of work that goes into that stuff. The face plates, I had to make the face plates as well. Easily 200 hours. Well over 200 hours. So, sunk cost fallacy? No. Yeah, right? No USA flag. But it does say made in the USA. Right? Yeah, it does. Right there. Handcrafted amps made in the USA. Serial number 001. Because this is the first of its kind. Because it is the first of its kind. I'm thinking about making a plaque to put on the bottom of the amp too, to, let it know that it's been, done as a giveaway, etc. So I haven't decided for sure if I'm going to do that or not. But it would be kind of cool to be like, hey, congratulations. Here you go. You won this cool amp, whatever. But we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet or not. So yeah, a lot of work goes into that. And then it comes to the shipping side of things. So I was thinking America, of course, it's going to get shipped here in America. Well, how much would it cost to ship? 200, 300, 400 bucks? I don't know. Luke, read. I read all the time. Save that pic I just sent you and show it, please. Oh, my apologies. I will fucking read, all right? I see a couple pictures. Oh, okay. I see it now. Hold on. So this is what Andy's been up to lately. I can see he's got some SGRs in there. Screen grid resistors. he's added a couple more capacitors in there. Right? So these guys here, those two are new. He hasn't had those before, so those are new in there. So he's been busy. Mr. OBS. Well, OBS is great. It's great. It's a great tool to run this stuff with. I read, okay? I read. But so yeah. There was that. I was looking into the shipping, and it really didn't matter where in the country it was. It was going to be like $300 or $400 to ship it, the way I want to ship it. When I was looking at sending it to Sweden, on the low end, it looked like it was going to be about $500 to $600. On the high end, it would have been like $700 to $800 or something like that to ship it. And the reason being is that there's VAT and tariff taxes or whatever they have over there. You have to claim something. So if I'm going to ship it that direction, I have to claim what it is, and I have to declare a value on it. Obviously, if I want to insure it for any amount of money that it's worth, I would have to insure it for or claim it as something in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, right? Andy, you are welcome. So by the time you work out all the taxes and the shipping costs and stuff like that, it was easily going to be $600 plus, all in. And Linus, I didn't want to eat him into it and be like one of those deals where, you know, by the way, it's going to cost you $600 to ship this thing to you, because that's what it costs for the taxes and fees and this, that, and the other. I didn't want to pull that crap. It was just, I wanted it to be one of those things that I dealt with. So I started looking at flights, and round trip flights to Sweden are about $500-600. So it's like, you know what? Fork that. I just fly there and drop it off by hand, turn it into a vacation trip, this, that, and the other. No big deal. So now I'm turning it into a vacation trip because I am taking a friend with me, and I am, you know, I'm paying for his tickets as well to join along with me. So Brian is going to go with me. So yeah, whatever. It's the most expensive amp in the world to give away. Period. It's the most expensive giveaway amp ever in the world. Easily a $5,000 or $6,000 amplifier in value. I mean, that's on the low end. That's probably what it would cost to, honest to God, make it. And then just all the other crap. So it's going to be the world's most expensive giveaway amp. That's just all there is to it. So Linus, you are a lucky mofo, but I'm happy to go there and visit. So it's going to be cool. I'm happy. I'm super stoked. I'm just bitching to bitch. I'm not like crying or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is. Do you see that? It's time for some more. We're starting to bang through this bottle though. It's a win-win. Very much so, Owen. I think it's a win-win. I get to do something cool. I now have an amp that's in a different country. So what else? I mean, what more can you ask for, to be honest? What more can you ask for? So the hope is that it will grow and expand a little bit more. JJ Cancat. I'm struggling to get a hold of them. I'm not a fan of JJ. Let me tell you why. They are not rated quite the same as all the other ones are. So they are rated, I think, to 85C, maybe 85C. They are 500 volt. They're the only ones like them that you can get. They are freaking ginormous, by the way. So the ones that you get that are axial, whether you get a 0.0 or 47 UF or 22 UF, it is 1 inch by nearly 1 and something inches wide. So it's going to be 1 inch fat by nearly 1 inches wide, or a little over 1 inches wide or long. Period. Doesn't matter what value you get. That's the only reason I don't like them. They're still 10% rated. I don't know if they have a vintage tone or not. They're just not as good as the F&T or some of the Sprags. F&T for sure. The Vishay is come out again with a new line. You can find them in some places, but I'm not a huge fan of JJ. At least the caps. Well, so JJ caps are the only ones you can get like that though. That's the thing. What the fuck are you talking about? Don't bring your crap in here. Damn it, Money Talks. Keep that elsewhere. This isn't the forum. So Money Talks, I've done nothing but have your back, bro, and all you do is troll me. So obviously, wired in series, yes, but it depends on how many things it has. So if it only has one ground, then no. And most caps that are cap cans, I don't have one to show you, but I don't even know who. Okay, maybe there's some other stuff I can't see. Yuki, hold on. Help me out here, bro. Hold on. Keep the peace. That's all I say. Keep the peace. So cap cans have a couple different orientations. They have 2 positives and 1 negative. Those ones you cannot run in series because you need to run in from one to the other to ground. The only way around that is to run them in parallel. So you can jump between the two, which I guess makes them, would that be series? To me, that would be parallel. But if you run them in parallel, that makes it 200 UF. So they go double in size. But the voltage doesn't change, right? There are other ones that have literally 2 grounds and 2 positives. It's just literally 2 caps built into one. Those ones you can run in series, right? Because you can go into the negative, the 1, and then back up to the positive. Because that's how you have to do it to run them in series, right? So let me show you what I was looking to do here. So this one's got 2 positives and a negative. But these ones are rated for 500 volts. These are F&Ts, right? So these ones here, I'm going to run in parallel. So I'm going to basically bridge the 2 positives, and then the negative is going to go to ground. So that makes this a 100 plus 100, which gives me 200 UF, right? So I'll have 200 UF at 500 volts. Not all of them will work that way, though. So if you're looking for series, it won't work if in that case. It'll only work in parallel. Now, there are some that do have 2 negatives and 2 positives. Those ones you can run in series, though. Depends on what you're looking to do. The only way to run those style in series is to use 2 of them. So in that case here, if you have 2 of them, you'd wire one into the other, right? So you'd run the positive of this side into the negative of this side, and then, or the negative of this side into the positive of the other one, and then the negative to ground. And that's how you would get them to be series. And then you would have half the UF value, and in this case here, you'd end up with 100 UF at basically 1,000 volts. We don't need that. So when you run them in series, you double the voltage, but you have the value of the capacitance, etc. Right? What are you talking about here? What? I'm going to let you moderators take care of shit. I can't keep track of who's going on here, but take your bubble gum to the sidewalk. Not here. That's the problem. No, JJ, a lot of them are 500 volt. You can get a lot of them in 500 volt. You can also get 500 volt in the Jupiters. So the Jupiters have some that are in the 500 volt range as well, or at least the 450 volt range, and they're axial, so they're not the cap can shit. I do not like cap cans, by the way. So I don't use cap cans at all. Bob, thank you. Just you know, keep it simple over here. All right. We don't, there's no bullshit here. We're talking amps, we don't deal with freaking drama outside of this crap. All right. Just saying. So again, when you series caps, they double in voltage, but halve in value. And when you run them in parallel, they double in value, but remain the same in voltage. So JJ, as far as I know, has a lot of 500 volt caps, as does Jupiter. The problem with Jupiter is you're going to pay out the nose for them. They are not cheap. The last I was looking, I think they were like $29 for the ones I was looking for. $29 is pretty expensive. So I don't recommend it unless you are, you know, absolutely have to do it that way. I wanted to do it, but it just started getting cost prohibitive, because I don't think they're any better than the F&T stuff, and I like F&T. The only problem with F&T is they don't have a lot of 500 volt options. I think they have mostly 450 volt options, and the 500 volt options that they do don't go up as high. So maybe they stop at like 400 or 47 UF or something like that, or maybe 100 UF or something like that, but certainly not higher than that. Whereas JJ's, you can get some of the higher UF values, 100, 200 UF or something like that, in those higher voltages. But they're going to be cap cans. That's the downside. That's what these ones here are. There's a lot of those cap can styles. Which ones are these ones? This one is a 250... I can't read what it says. It's 500 volt, which means it's a 250 MF. So it's a 250 UF at 500 volt. That's freaking up there. That's about as high as I've ever seen. And there's another one here that's a 250 UF at 500 volt. There's a smaller one here that is a 50 UF plus a 50 UF, so 250s at 500 volt. So when you combine the 250s together, you can either run it as a 50-50. How do they run it on theirs? Hold on. Single ground. So it's 50, 50-50, so you can run them in parallel and you get 100 UF at 500 volts, right? So there's a couple different ways you can do it, but some of their other ones you can do differently. And these ones are all, so the larger ones, the larger ones that are 250 UF are single. There's no, it's just one in, one out. So it's a positive and a minus. They're not a cap can in regard to their, where they have two values in one ground. It's just one input, one output. So it's basically like an axial, but it's built into a cap can. That's fine, but they're rated at minus 10% or plus 30%. That's the scary part. So, well, I guess if you're going solid state, not a problem. If you're using a tube rectifier, that's the scary part. If you're going to go with a tube rectifier and you're going to use the JJs, you better make sure that that plus 30% isn't much beyond what your rectifier tube can handle. Just saying. When you're going with solid state rectification, doesn't freaking matter. So minus 10%, whatever. 250, it's dropped down, 25 UF. So it's 225 UF, big freaking whoop, or whatever. I don't know if that's the math or not, but plus 30%, if it goes up plus 30%, you win anyway. There's a couple others inside. There's a lot of caps in this motherfucker. There's one more inside, and I can't read the value on it, but it's a dual cap can. So, whatever. Whatever. So, I'm not a fan of cap cans for that reason. I will try to go with axial anytime I can. And if I don't want to go with axial and I really want to go balls out, I'll go with the Nishikans with the radial mounted stuff. So the round ones with the two leads that come out the bottom. Kind of like a cap can in a sense, but you can usually get those in 450 volt or 600 volt variants that are up there in terms of value. More so than you can like the F&Ts. The F&Ts are great. I would place them as being better than the JJs in overall quality, with the exception that you cannot get a JJ with 100 UF at, 500 volt. You just can't get them. They don't exist, and that's the problem. They don't exist. So, it's hard to win the battle. The Jupiters, nobody's going to argue with the Jupiter's quality. The only thing they're going to argue with is the cost. Those things do not go cheap. Oh, let me see if I can find one real quick. Hold on. I was looking at one recently on eBay. Let's see what they're going for here. $7.29 for a 100 UF. 47 UF at 100 volts. So that's a lot of money for that size, because I don't know who's using 100 volt for that value. Not me, anyway. God dang it, I hate the way they did that. Yeah, JJ's the only one that kind of does those standard kind of values like that. What's this one? $29.95 for this one. It's 100 UF at 500 volt. There you have it, Jupiter. If you want 100 UF at 500 volt, $30 each. Not cheap. So, just saying. If that's what you're into, that's the only way you can go. It's all your freaking fault, Leaderman. So the Kapkan Road, it's the only way you're going to get that high a value of UF in that format that will fit in an amp, period. This is the only way you're going to be able to do it, unless you go with the Jupiters. As you saw, 100 UF, 500 volt, right? You tag two of those in parallel with each other, so you spent $60 to get two in parallel at 500 volt, and you're using, they're giant, like they're the size of these freaking F&Ts that I got here. And these F&Ts are the largest size I could find in that range. These are 100 plus 100, so I can get 200 UF in about the size of one of these JJs. That's the only reason I went this route. This is the only one I could find that was 100 plus 100 at 500 volts. That's the downer with them. So the reason I don't like the Kapkans is because they share that ground, right? So if you're using different nodes for each of these, they have to share that ground. Well, if those two nodes don't like sharing grounds, you're going to get buzzes. That's the downer with them. So the only way that you can get away with using these Kapkans, and these things are freaking heavy. Like if I threw this at you, you'd be furked. I'd furk you up with one of these and throw them at you. It's got a built-in security system. The only way you can use these things, I think, properly is to run them in parallel, like I plan on using them, so you get double the UF at the voltage that they're at. High watt style is a tough one. It's tough. I don't like linear layouts. So when I say linear, I mean like everything is in line with each other all the way down the line. The only reason I don't like it is because you end up with a lot of jumpers back and forth, and it's arguable whether or not that's bad or not. In my experience, I don't have a problem with noise in my amps, which is to say that you can turn them all the way up and all you hear is, right, like you know the amp's on when you turn them all the way up. You don't hear any or buzz or anything, right? I don't do a lot of high gain builds, so that's another thing, but I don't like the way the heater wire. Oh, well, heater wire is one of those things, like there's no way around it. I would go straight. Honestly, the wrap, the twist, the high twist thing doesn't matter. Doesn't freaking matter. If you do elevated heaters will pretty much make it a moot point anyway. So if your heaters are above your cathode in terms of voltage, you just don't hear it. It doesn't assimilate into the tube as noise, right? Because there's enough separation between them that noise is shunted out. It's when they're at the same or nearly the same relative voltage that things become a problem. Or when your cathode is really high above them, because there's a lot of current flow going through that cathode at that point, right? The noise will start to, flow through them. Like you'll start to hear it. It'll assimilate. There's so many different ways to do these things. I did do a grounding video for one of my memberships recently. I'm looking at changing my membership platform a little bit. I only have one, so whatever, not a big deal. But with that membership, I'm kind of trying to do like more like super duper pointed. Just getting straight to the point, getting in there, getting the concept, getting the idea, and pointing out how you can do X, Y, Z, right? Okay. Well, the heaters aren't that big of a problem though. In an amp, really, it's not going to be that much of a problem. It's being smart about it. So if you keep things crossed at 90 degrees, so you minimize the amount of, cross areas, obviously if you got the heater going this way and you got a wire going across it, that's going to be a problem. But if they're going at 90 degrees, not so much of a problem, right? Whether it zigzags around, that doesn't really matter all that much. The noise that emulates from the heaters, and I think I can't remember who or where, I saw a thing about it, but the noise that comes out of the heaters is pretty much in line with where they're at. So if they're twisted together at all, the noise is just a blade, right? Just imagine a thing straight up and down. So if you crissy-cross at a 90-degree angle, the cross-sectional area is so small it doesn't matter anymore. Even if you run the lines parallel with each other, so this is kind of doing like the Soldano style for the output tubes, where they run everything in a vertical line. I think they even do it for the preamp section, if I'm not mistaken. I've done an amp that way intentionally just to see how much of a problem it would be. Not a freaking problem. When you run them in parallel, it just doesn't freaking matter. When they're together with each other, that's where the noise is at, and it's this small little slice that goes wherever they go, and all you got to do is make sure that anything that goes over the top of them just crosses as close to a 90 degrees you can get them. Heaters are not the problem that they make them out to be anymore, and I think it's mainly because most of these circuits are pretty settled at this point. You know what I mean? Like they're just settled in that regard. So. But getting back to the high watt style though, where everything is vertical and linear, right? So you got 1, 2, just everything's stacked vertical. Well, the only way for this resistor here to talk to this resistor down here is for a wire to jump down from here to there. Actually, sorry, the other way, but you get what I mean. Like from here to there, right? The only way for that to happen is for a wire to go across. Whereas it would be better if you could get this one and this one to just touch each other, right? Right? Instead of having a wire run down, you just touch it. So I think a hybrid version of what Matchless was trying to do is probably a better way to go. In the grand scheme of things, if you're trying to modernize anyway, if you're trying to build, period correct or something to that spec, then you go that direction. But that's why I really like these. Let me grab one real quick so I can show you what I mean. That's why I really like these boards here. They've got a lot of holes in them, which lets air flow through them, and airflow is nice. So you can put the turrets in a multitude of different spots. And when you can put the turrets wherever you need to, if you need to put a value here and a value here, that's fine. You put them right there, right? And it acts like the wire jumper. So you're using the part itself as the wire jumper, which then kind of, in a sense, shortens the path, if you will. And if the objective is to shorten the wire path as much as possible,
if you can take this part here and this part here and join them together, then you've shortened it as much as you possibly. I was watching something last night. It was Veritasium. I don't know if you watch him at all, but Veritasium is like a super scientist or whatever. And they were talking about the mathematical equation for the least amount of action. And it's this parabolic curve, more or less. And there's all kinds of different ways. There's like 3 different ways you can do the math on it to do this parabolic curve that always settles at the least amount of action required to achieve X result. Turns out it follows Newton's second law of motion or something like that. No matter how you cut it, Newton had it right from the beginning or whatever. Exactly. But, you know, it's the least amount of action is the least amount of action. It doesn't matter how you get there. If you run wires all over the place, if that is the least amount of action to get it to this point, that is the least amount of action. Now, it tends that a parabolic curve will end up being the average of all of those different results. So in my case, the way that I try to do it is instead of running a 1-inch or 2-inch wire that gets across the board, you just use the resistor itself and join it at the thing, which means you have to use more space. You can't, you know, you can't run everything linearly. You have to kind of eat up space to get these parts to go across. But whatever. To each their own. To each their own. I just don't tend to have problems with noise. We're going to find out on this igniter build. So let me get that for you real quick and kind of give you an idea roughly of what it is I'm trying to do. Because this is going to be interesting because I don't have a whole hell of a lot of space. Try like none whatso freaking ever. It's not going to be fun. Not looking forward to this build, to be honest, because I'm trying to do a lot with nothing. So what I got here is the igniter, the tweaker, the igniter tweaker 15. I've got that amount of space to work in. That right there, that's 2 inches. Not 2.5 inches, that is 2 inches. And I've only got these standoffs there to work with. So I'm trying to make it so that these fit in here, but I don't think they're going to fit. Let's see if I can do this here. Aha. They're not going to fit this way. Vertically, by the time, get the fuck out of there. By the time I set these up and put a capacitor in there, I'm not going to have enough space to fit the cap can between that and the edge of the chassis there, right? So I'm going to have to mount these things. I think I'm going to have to go vertical. Vertical, meaning that I'm going to have to lay these things down there kind of like this. So you get what I mean? And then another one like this near the top. So I'll end up with something like that. So I'll end up with these two kind of running next to each other. God damn, I can't show you a freaking thing. So these two will be running kind of like this. Right? Like that. Next to each other. But they'll be vertical inside of the amp. So with that, I think I can get all the things to fit. And I may still have to, I don't know. It's going to be fun. Because the amount of, I want to go with solid state rectification in here. Which means I may as well go with larger capacitance, which is like those cap cans there. But to give you an idea of how big these things really freaking are. These things here, you're about to laugh. So this cap can is standing up. It's on the base of the chassis. See how those leads stick up? All right, so that's level, right? You can see that the leads stick up. So the only way this would work is if it's laying down. So if I lay it down in there, you can see it eats up half the freaking space in the amp. Like there's just no way I can put these things in there. And that is the most amount of filtration. That is the most amount of filtration I can fit in there. So the only way I can go is vertical, which means I'm going to have to put these things, stay put, in the vertical like this and then run the parts like that. I'm going to figure it out. And as Andy says, I'm going to have to do it. It will fit.
It will fit. I'm not worried about that. But it's going to be tight. And I'm trying to do... What am I trying to do in here? I'm going to have 3 tubes, 3 12AX7s. 3. Give them the shocker. 3. Right? Trust Ignator to do that, because they would. With 3 12AX7s, I am intending on using the first tube as a parallel triode. So that eats 1 whole tube, which only leaves me with 4 more triodes. I am going to go with a cathodine phase inverter, which will leave me with 3 gain stages after that. So I will have a total of 4 gain stages and a cathodine phase inverter. Based on my math, that thing there at the voltage I think it will run, with the voltage I expect that will be getting to the preamp side of things, I can use the cathodine phase inverter to push the output tubes into full-on distortion, period. And I will still have much gain to go with those 4 other gain stages, at least 3, because the first tube I don't really count as a gain stage, really. That's not where the distortion is created, right? So I'll have 3 gain stages for sure of distortion plus a phase inverter. That's the plan at the moment. This thing is going to be a dirty beast, a beast of a mofo. That's the plan. Just saying. We're going to try to do it live, at least most all of it. There's not much to do. This is like literally stick a freaking thing in the hole that's there, right? The hardest part for me is going to be getting the turrets in there and wiring all the stuff up. I have to figure out how the frick I'm going to wire that stuff up. The way it's looking like I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to use 4, 2 on each side of those strips that I had there, that you saw, the turret board strips. So I can have 2 sides vertically that I can run everything. That's the only way I think I can get all that to work together. We're going to find out. We're going to find out in real time together. Yay! But when I'm done, my plan is to have something that is a gain banger. But it will be a little over 15 watts. I expect it'll be like a 22 watt amp, to be honest. That's my plan, is to have at least 20 watts of power for this particular build. 2 6v6s. I suspect at about 400, right around 400 volts on the plates. It will be fixed bias. I'm going to do fixed biased. Go from there. So, slow clone. Low. Yeah, I've been there before, actually. I'm not going to do a slow. Now, the reason I decided I wanted to go with the cathodine phase inverter, I did the math on this. Cathodine phase inverter, with the amount of voltage I'm playing with, yada, yada, will have enough voltage, enough swing, if you will, to push the output tubes clean. So I shouldn't have any cathodine phase inverter distortion, which means I shouldn't have to worry about the blat. I'm not going to use a post phase inverter master volume. This one is going to be a preamp gain amp. I'm going to try to fit an effects loop into this thing. I don't know how it's going to work, because the one that I have, that I think that I want to use, this guy here, something similar to that, not this exact one, but one similar to this, is freaking huge and probably won't fit in that amp. So putting an effects loop in that thing is going to be a challenge in and of itself, but the plan is to try to get an effects loop in there. That's the plan. We'll see how that goes. That one's going to play out in real time, more or less. That's all I can say. This is going to play out in real time. So hope to God that it's going to work out. Otherwise, we're going to have to, the slow 30 effects loops worth robbing. I haven't seen that one yet. I don't know what they're doing. They're not using tubes, obviously, right? I assume that they're using something similar to that little module right there. Like what do they call that? A TL. What is that freaking model of MOSFET or whatever the hell they're using? I can't remember what the hell they call that thing. Of course, I can't read it because I'm old. It's like a TLM 150 or something like that. I can't read it. I don't know. There's some... I can't read it. It doesn't matter. Most of these modules here that you can buy, there's probably half a dozen of them you can find on the interwebs. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, hell yeah. Thank you. Keep here because, well, here in between Andy's channel, we got lots to learn. But there are different models. I chose this one because it does have the adjustable gains for the send and the return, but you can get to them through the input and output jacks, the send and return jacks. I thought about going with the remote on-off switch, but I decided on this particular one that I would keep it on the switch that's on the jack itself, mainly because I kind of feel like most people are either all for or all against using these things. So might as well just put the switch in there and just let you decide whether or not you want to go with or without. The KT88 build is the one I got this one for, but there are a couple other different versions of these, and you get them in different variations where they don't have adjustable gains, where they don't have remote. You can do remote switching, so you can have it turn on and off remotely. This one still allows for switching remotely by utilizing some other holes that are in there. There's all kinds of different ones. There's all kinds of different ones. So Lord the frick knows. We're gonna see. We're gonna find out in real time later on. Not today, obviously. So I do have kind of a Vox style circuit currently. May as well show it because it's close enough to done anyway. I think I'm actually calling it done. Let's see here. This guy. So this guy looks familiar to you probably. It's got an input, low volume, master volume, high cut, 4 EL84s. Very simple layout. And you can kind of see how I did my heater run there. Very simple layout though. This one uses an EF86. So it's only got one EF86 that goes straight into the phase inverter there. Sorry, I'm bopping the thing there. Phase inverter and right into the output section. This one is using a larger 35 watt output transformer, and it's pretty stout for the power transformer as well. This thing is a beast. This thing's mean. It is not like a DC30. A lot of people try to compare these things to a lot of the AC style circuits. That one is not an AC style circuit. That thing's a beast. I set it up in such a way where that EF86 is spanking. It is spanking that freaking phase inverter. It does not do the AC30 chimey thing. It's kind of its own little beast, if you will. Full range. It's got grunt. It's got grunt. Balls. It's got balls. Big, hairy freaking balls. So yeah, I do all kinds of little things like that. I have shown that amp before in another video. It is a little bit different than from that video. I have done some modifications to it since then. Effects loops. You don't have to do that. You don't have to get a dB meter. It's all freaking math, dude. It's all math. So if you can figure out what your voltage is on your send, you can figure out what you need as a dropper to get it down to X thing. Or you can put a freaking pot in there. It's all just math. And there's calculators online that will tell you how to do that stuff. ChatGPT will tell you those answers, to be honest. No. So EF86 tubes and other Pento tubes in general are a problem only because most designers abuse the circuit. They copy and paste, right? So they took a circuit from the days of yore and then they hyped it up a little bit to modern, whatever. So like the matchless HC30 or DC30, whatever. Same, right? They use like a 330K plate resistor, and they do a bunch of other stuff that really makes that tube work harder than it's meant to work. They're trying to get every ounce of output out of it. So if too much, I say it all the time, too much of a good thing is still too much. If you abuse it, you will lose it. All right, makes sense? It's not a problem for microphonics. Now, what I will say is that they each have a lot of character. So if you buy 5 of them,
I can't guarantee that this one and the fifth one are going to sound exactly the same, but if you keep the circuit modest, as in you're not abusing what the power of those tubes have, the difference between them is minimal. At least Phil Jameson, yeah. He was asking quite a bit out of them in an era when those tubes were more problematic. I say more problematic because just because you put a vintage tube in your amp doesn't mean that it's the best. You know, it's not the best thing since sliced bread. A vintage tube is still a vintage tube. It is old. It is hanging on by a thread on whether or not it works or doesn't work, right? It's only good because it's lasted that long on a shelf. That doesn't guarantee anything else beyond that point in time, right? The Bose, I don't seem to have a problem with the microphonics on them. I have two different amps at EF86. This one there has an EF86 in it. I don't seem to have a problem with it. That one, the one I just showed you the gut shot of, that one uses a special version, the gold plated, all this, that, and the other, the extra money. It's got a different character than this one that uses the standard version that's available. I kind of actually prefer the standard version. It's a little more tame. It's a little just whoosh, right? Maker's Mark. That's what we're on today. the booze, the BOZE. Yeah. No, today we are drinking Maker's Mark. Yeah, too much of a good thing is still too much. If you abuse it, you will lose it. So if you're modest with your design, you know, and you don't ask too much out of it, you can get 99% of the character. You lose that last 1% maybe that somebody might like that other amp for, but you gain reliability, you gain predictability. That's a big one. And you gain lifespan, you know, so reliability. So predictability, dependability, reliability, all the above, right? You're not on the ragged edge, which means you're not running on borrowed time, which means that you get to enjoy whatever it is that you have for longer. That's the way I try to design these things. Oh, French Canadian. Okay. I guess that makes sense considering your name there. Welcome to the channel, by the way. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate that. So you're Canadian? Are you Canadian, eh? I'm asking, I'm teasing, of course. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but there are so many different ways you can design these amps. Honest to God, as Riley knows, there's a million and one ways that you can design these amps. No PCBs. PCB bad. No PCB. That's like Johnny 5 dead shit right there. Johnny 5 not alive. Johnny 5 dead. PCBs is a race to the bottom. That's the literal way to put it. It's just, how can we make this as cheap as possible? And that's where everybody's gone. It's always a race to the bottom. I do not do cheap. I do as good as it can possibly be for what money you can spend on it. Right? Scoozy. So yeah, I will use PCB parts. Some of my amps use modules in them that obviously use PCBs. There's just no way to get around it when you're trying to use a compact thing in something. I'll show you what I mean. You know, so you got something like this guy here, my LED driver module, right? You got this little guy. So obviously this it's elastic, you know, it's got stuff in there. It's PCB, whatever. This is a toss away item. This is the part that I expect will die, but it's ubiquitous. Like, you can find this anywhere and you can replace it. These guys here, these are probably lifelong parts because there's not much on them. It's nothing but resistors, really. This guy right here, effects loop. There's just no way around it. Like, if you want to just do something that everybody's used to and you need an effects loop, this is the only way around it. I'm not a fan of effects loops because I have not found one yet that you can't tell is in there. Sure, the amp might sound fine with it in there, that's great. But I guarantee you, if it sounds good with it in there, it's going to sound even better without it. Period. I dare you to prove me wrong. If you have an effects loop, I don't give a fuck what kind it is. If it's this one here, which this is the Granger version, which is one of the more higher, quality versions, or a tube version, or whatever version of effects loop that you have, if it sounds good with it in there, I guarantee you it's going to sound, the amp itself will sound better without it. Period. 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 Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. So I know that sounds pretty spicy in the way I put it, but realistically, the more you put in the circuit, the less the quality is going to be. So if you start literally trying to put something in the circuit that's not meant to be there because you're not using it, or it's there to do some other task, it will never be the same as if you took it out. Period. So it's always going to sound better without that crap in there than it would with it in. So, well, maybe the attenuator's good. I have an attenuator too. It works great, but it's still not as good as just cranking the amp to high hell. I've got one of these guys here. This is a Captor X. It works great. It's a little nice. Not really an attenuator. I don't use it for attenuation, but I got a Friedman BE50. But do you know what it sounds like without that effects loop? Do you actually know what it sounds like without that effects loop? Is it truly bypassed? That's what I'm getting at is, yes, the effects loop, is it always in circuit and you just turn it off so it's not sending anything out, right? It's just passing through, or you know what I mean? I bet if you remove it altogether, you would find that it sounds just a little bit better. Just a little bit better. You just won't have an effects loop. That's the downside. The torpedo, right? Yeah. So that's the other problem too, is that volume. So the Torpedo Captor X is great because not the attenuation, the IR side of it is great, right? Works great. I call it the great equalizer because you can plug 5 different amps into it and it's going to react the way it reacts to those 5 different amps, but the IR is the same every time. So the mic position, all the other stuff that affects the IR is the same, right? Friedman pinched the loop out of another amp. Okay, so they removed it out of another one? I would imagine so. If they did, I don't know. I'm not a huge Friedman fan, if you can't already tell. I'm not a fan of anything that comes out of the bad warehouse. So the IR, yeah, that's the way to go. The attenuator in that thing, the attenuation circuit in there, the one that goes from like 0 dB to minus 15 to minus 30, absolute dog shit. It does not work very well. Do not use that thing as an attenuator. You're using it for the IRs, period. That's it. But as a great equalizer, as I say, it works flawlessly in that regard. Yeah, play silent, exactly. But then you take out the reality of things. Like, it doesn't hit you the same. It's not flapping your, it's your pant legs or whatever. You know what I mean? And until you play around with it a little bit more, you don't really understand like how much these things that you add in, like it's impossible to think that you can put an effects loop inside of a circuit. So you've got this preamp going on and you got this effects loop going on. That this effects loop does not affect anything at all in any way, shape, or form when it's engaged, right, to the sound of the amp. Period. Like, it's impossible to think that this circuit doesn't affect this circuit when it's engaged. Now, when it's off, obviously it's going to sound great because this circuit is independent of this one now. It's not in the circuit anymore, so it just does what it does. The power station. The Fryette stuff is kind of cool in that regard.
But it's another circuit. All right. So all you're doing is taking the amp and running it into a power soak. That's all it's doing, is eating all the power that your amp is putting out. And then it's running it into something that does its IR thing or whatever the hell it does. And in the Fryette's case, it's just reamping your guitar back out. All right. So it's got a couple of tubes. I think there's 6550s. I think it's 100 watt or 50 watts or whatever the hell it is. It's just reamping your amp. So it's not one-to-one, right? You're not taking this and going straight into that and getting one out. It's something else. Sure, it sounds good. I'm not saying it sounds bad. It's just, right? It's not one-to-one anymore. Anytime you add something between this one and that one, it's going to be different. A copy of a copy is not as good as the original, right? Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's copied from a Mesa or not. The only reason I picked that particular effects loop, the one here, is this one it's Granger. It's kind of the same one that a lot of companies use, so it's arguably good, right? We're splitting those hairs. We're talking about that one-to-one thing, right? If you put this in there, it's gonna sound different. It's not gonna be as good as it is if you went one-to-one, right? The preamp is the preamp. You run it through this, it's gonna change the sound, period. If you take that preamp and you run it through any effects loop, it's gonna sound different. For better or for worse. I'm not saying that they all suck, but yeah. Well, and with an attenuator, you are going to get a little more grit. A little bit of that's going to come actually from the phase inverter. So I don't know how the Runt 50 works or whatever. I don't own one. I know that they're pretty well regarded. It's not that they're bad amps. I'm not saying that Dave Friedman makes horrible amps or shitty amps. I just don't like the business model, and I don't like how they're marketed. They're overselling, I think. That's a me thing, but whatever. He's the one making all the money. I'm not. So good for him. In that regard, sure, whatever. But it's still a pile of shit. It's not meant to last a lifetime. It will break down. There are some out there that are already starting to show problems. And I think the Runt is one of them. I could be mistaken. I know that Rift Amps did a thing recently about them, and they were saying that it was like the pot that was the problem. Turns out it wasn't the pot in this case. It was the slope resistor, which goes to the treble pot. There's all kinds of different things, right? Whatever. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder every time. So I can tell you it sounds like Dooku all day long. And you can say, go fuck yourself, because I like the way it sounds. I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. That is totally up to you. And that's how opinions and feelings go, right? But when you start operating an amp differently than you did in one way, you're going to start to find those things. So when you run an attenuator, you're finding another operating point of that amplifier, which means you're finding that other point that it starts to do XYZ a little bit differently. A lot of people, I don't think they're used to hearing what actual output tube distortion sounds like. It's different. It's not the same as preamp distortion. It is not the same as phase inverter distortion. And I think phase inverter distortion is what people are more impressed by than you think it is. Because and I literally mean this with from every ounce of my body, most all matchless amps are predominantly phase inverter distortion. Prove me wrong. When you get down to the brass tacks of how they operate, ask me how I know, because I've got a few amps that kind of follow similar topologies. Those amps work off of phase inverter distortion. And most of the time, phase inverter distortion is what a lot of people like. JCM 800, same. Because that phase inverter is distorting long before the output tubes are.
They sound great once you get it into the point where the output tubes are working. But my flagship amp right now is an 18 watt design. That guy right there. Why is it my flagship design? It's the only model I have currently where you can decide where the distortion comes from. You can pick output tubes or phase inverter, and then you can blend the two in. It works. It does the thing. Can't tell you why. I don't know why. It just does the thing. Some of my other designs, it's you can't blend between power amp or power tube and phase inverter. It's pretty much you get one or the other. So matchless is abusive. I hate to say it. They're cool amps and people like them for the reasons they like them. They do hum because not all of them, but a lot of them use more voltage than they probably should. The way that they're built and designed, not ideal. They look cool because they got all these parts going everywhere and everybody thinks, oh, that's the way they should be built. No, that's not true. And then just the way they're designed. It's just it's everything. It's sum of all parts. My amps do not hum. My amps do not make noise. You'd be hard pressed to know that it was on until you hit the strings. But they don't sound like a matchless either. I'm not trying to be matchless. I'm not a matchless copycat. I just have some topologies that are similar in some regards to them. That's all. I love 5 watt amps, to be honest. These lower watt amps, I think they're the bee's knees, to be honest. My little 5 watt here, one of these days I'll do a little expose on it. I'll fuck around with you guys a little bit, but I think at normal volumes, you'd be hard pressed to know the difference. When they're working in their linear range, and I say linear, I mean the distortion from the preamp and the power section, there's none. All right, they're working in their linear range. What goes in is what comes out. You can't tell the difference. You cannot tell the difference. And most people, yeah, sure, they think that 30 watts is getting them into that spank zone, 50 watts, 100 watts, 400 watts. Andy's probably freaking shaking his head at me right now, but you know what I mean? Like 30 watts, I kind of feels like the end all be all. Once you get above 30 watts, you're just playing a different game at that point. Like you don't need much more than that. That's a me thing though. That's not an everybody thing. So what tubes doesn't matter, really. Matchless is a different, how do you explain it? I like matchless. I really do. Because they're the only ones that do that thing. Bad Cat is the second best option to a matchless, right? Like matchless does what a matchless does. They're that bright, spanky, chimey, very thin, kind of wiry almost kind of thing. Like they're the only ones that does that thing. They appeal very greatly to country and kind of the low edge of breakup kind of thing, right? They do that thing. It's the only ones that can do it. But they do it by cheating. They break rules. They use a lot of voltage on some of their amps. Not all, but some of their amps are using more voltage than they really should. So they're running these things to the ragged freaking edge. And we talked about it just a little bit ago. If you use it, you will lose it, right? So when you start pushing everything to the absolute limit, you're going to lose it, right? It's going to burn itself up. It's going to always have noise, right? A lot of them have noise anyway because they use a butt ton of freaking carbon composition resistors. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. The mojo aspect of carbon comp is bullshit, right? Excuse me. Carbon composition is just noisy. They have noise, period. So if you build an entire amp out of them, it's just going to have a lot of hiss. Might have a little more hum. Whatever it might be, it's going to drift in value. You get it hot one day, it's going to sound great. Get it cold another day, it's going to sound like Dookie, or maybe vice versa, right? The backplate, the material that they use, they run them so freaking hot that, yeah, the backplate warps. There's just a lot of these little things. It's just the sum of all parts. And
I wouldn't say they're dangerous. I'm not going to say they're dangerous. They're just not built to what I feel is the best standard. That's a hard one to quantify for most people, though, because they're built kind of like, they say they're built like military, spec or whatever. They use all point to point. Everything's off of a turret, not a turret board. They use tag boards for everything in their amp. And they put the little silicone stuff on all the leads. But if you look at one, not one thing is parallel. Everything's always kind of at a cant. If you ever looked at like a Skylark, what is that one? It's not a Carson. Maybe it's a Carson. I don't know. There's another amp model out there that's like highly regarded, does kind of a similar thing. Everything's carbon comp. Everything's like snotted down. They use like hot glue on every freaking component in the amp, and it just looks like somebody went like jizzed in the freaking thing. It's freaking nasty, right? And then, yeah, I mean, they run them too hot, 100% or more. If you use it, you will lose it. I don't want to naysay. It's just there are some designs and some operational standards that are not optimal. That's all. I'm trying to float a difference between these cool designs that everybody likes, right? So you can see, you saw I got basically a DC-30 design, right? It just doesn't have the 12AX7 side. It uses the EF86 side of it, right? Something similar in that topology, slightly different in many regards elsewhere, but I'm not beating that amp to its ragged edge. It's modest on the voltage, modest on the output wattage. It's modest on how it works in general, but it sounds completely different. It does not do what a DC-30 does. It wasn't meant to, didn't want it to. That's Dr. Z. Dr. Z used to put the little ziggy zag. Used to. He doesn't do it anymore. Why do you think he doesn't do it anymore? Costs too much money. We were finally getting to that point, and that's why a lot of these amp companies are doing what they do. Dave Friedman is not making amps the same today as he was 15 years ago. Dave Friedman started his company, I think, in 2010. And the amps that you got then are completely different from the ones you get now. Nothing alike. The ones you get now are PCB with eyelet board construction, which is to say it's a hybrid, right? So they use this really thick garolite like type material with a bunch of holes drilled in it that are used as eyelets, and then they have a PCB trace between all of them. All they do is they run the wires into the holes. That's it. The components and the wires go into those holes where they're meant to be connected. And then they use the leaded wire, or unleaded wire, excuse me. So they use ROHS, CE, all those different whatever. So it's not the good solder, it's the shitty solder, right? That's how they're doing them now. They work. They sound fine. It's not that they sound bad. It's just, it's a PCB. It's a freaking PCB. If you look at it close, it's a PCB trace between all these jumpers and stuff like that. It's not a wire underneath there. It's a PCB. It sounds good, but it's not going to last you 30 years, 20 years. It might last you 20 or 30 years, maybe, but it ain't going to last beyond that. You do one repair on it, you're done. Maybe two. It's a little bit different than having a real wire, right? And let's just say that you do get 50 years down the line. Is it still going to be repairable to an amp that has literally a freaking wire that you can just replace the wire? On a PCB trace, you can't replace that. You have to run a wire after that point. The layout is not great. I'm sorry. The layout is not great. It looks clean. I will tell you, it looks clean. That does not mean it is right, though. That's fine. It's from PCB to tube socket, though. What is that PCB doing? Is the PCB a lifelong product? We already know that PCBs are not lifelong products. Is it repairable? How many times? We don't know. It should never have to be replaced or repaired objectively, and it might be a very long time. But how repairable? For how long? How many times? Like, is it a limited number of times or an unlimited number of times? That's the difference. That's where I'm trying to break away from, right? Mine is infinitely repairable, period. Like, you can break it however many times you want and fix it however many times you want. A PCB anything has a limited number of times that you can work on it, period. I don't care how gentle you are. With PCB anything, you've got a limited number of times. But there's always the depends. And I'm not trying to like bash on you and your decisions. I'm just, they have to meet their market. Their market is met by what people expend to own their product. $1,400 is pretty affordable compared to a, $3,000 or $4,000 amp, right? What would you value this at? Handmade, entirely handmade, right? Obviously you can't see what's inside, but entirely handmade, right? What will you expend for that? If I told you that was a $6,000 amp, you'd probably laugh me out of the room, right? But I can tell you right now, if it breaks, it's infinitely repairable. There is not a part in that amp that you cannot replace multitudes of times, over and over again, for the life of the amp. Can you tell me the same about a, one of those normal ones, right? So if you go out and you buy a Runt 50, we'll just pick on Friedman because we're already there, but let's say it lasts 10 years and then you got to replace that screen grid resistor or whatever it is. How many times can you do that before something has to be replaced otherwise? Yeah, nowadays, yeah. No, those eyelet boards are great, but now we're working on the other side of the problem though. So they are using ROHS CE approved components, right? So they're not using leaded solder. So that solder that they are using is not going to last like the leaded stuff that we use here. It's not the same as this stuff here. This is the good stuff. This is the good stuff. They're not using this. They're using shit compared to this. Will that last that long before it gets brittle, gets cold, breaks down, cold solder joint, whatever, XYZ? Which one's going to be more prone to problems? Right? Which one's going to be more prone to problems? That's the difference between the men's and the boys, right? You can get a Friedman for $1,500, or you can spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and it'll outlast you. It will outlive you. You will hand it down to your child, and your child will hand it down to his child, etc., etc. That's the idea behind them. That's the difference, anyway. It's not that those amps are made in China. It's not about knowing how to solder. That's not what we're talking about anymore. Those amps are now built to meet a bottom line. I'm not saying they're bad. Like, don't think I'm picking on you. It's not a picking on you thing. It's nitpicking down into that where it sits, what it's meant to be in the market. They are built to a price point, period. They cannot sell those things for $2,000 or $3,000 for their high-end model, the BE100 or whatever it is. I think they sell for right around the $3,000 mark or whatever the heck it is. You cannot build that amp for that price without meeting a price point. For me to do the same thing, it would cost twice as much. You're talking about a $6,000 amp, period. We're already talking about a multi-$1,000 amp, right? You get it. You understand. But I'm just trying to get you to see in the future. The future. We're not talking about the now. It sounds great now. And as I said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So you can think this amp sounds like absolute dooku. Maybe to you it does. Maybe to many people it does. And the Brown Eye 50 sounds like gold to a million people. And that might be the case. But 10 years from now, this thing's going to sound the same. 10 years from now, that BE 150 or whatever it is might not sound the same. Might not even be working. Might need repairs. cost of ownership over time might add up to the degree where you're burning up tubes, you're having to replace things often enough that this amp all of a sudden starts looking pretty snazzy after a while. You know, you get 20 years down the line and you never had to touch the damn thing. Whereas that BE, you've already gotten rid of it because you're sick and tired of replacing parts in it. That kind of thing. I would love to think that all of my amps sound great. But they do different things, right? I don't have a brown eye. I don't have like that type of amp right now, right? Most of my amps are pretty low gain. So again, we're not comparing an apple to an apple or comparing an apple to an orange, right? So no, and I appreciate your back and forth and your understanding and everything. So I'm just trying to explain why people like myself, Andy, Rift Amps, and many of these other actual boutique companies, we're not talking about BAD and Friedman and freaking, what's the Sky King company? Tone King amps, Ignator, and all those guys that are under the BAD, umbrella. They're great amps. It's not that they're not. They are not the same. There's a reason why these ones cost the price that they do. That's it. So, yeah, Andy, I mean, if you want to learn, there's more to Andy than there is to this channel for sure. It's multiple layers. It's like an onion. You peel it back. Yeah. Lederman, yeah, you're going to get entertainment value over there for sure. And then some. Like, he's going to teach you pretty much everything we're talking about here with his idea on and spin on things. But you're going to get just more entertainment value. He's got a little bit more going on than I do. Everything over here is pretty pointed. It comes down to our topic, period. And I try to keep it that way on purpose. So I'm not trying to... We got a different thing going on over here. So, and I love Andy. We talk every day. I mentioned it earlier. We talk all the time. So don't ever think that I'm talking bad about him. It's just a totally different... We have the goal in the middle is the same. I just do my thing over here. He does his thing over there. Like that. That's the kind of thing. In the middle, we meet 100% every time, all the time. His goal is to basically outmode all of the primary amp makers out there. Because they are making absolute dog shit, period. I'm going to say it too. Like, the shit that you buy, if you can buy it on Sweetwater today, it's probably bullshit. It's a crap freaking amp. It's got PCBs. It's using unleaded solder. It's going to sound great. It's going to do everything you wanted it to do. It's the thing you've always wanted to get, right? But, the modern day grounding scheme. Yeah, the modern day grounding scheme is so in my first ever real membership video, I go over the ground scheme. I go over it quite a bit in pretty good detail even. And I do have some other videos about ground scheme. It is important. There are a multitude of different ways to do it. Not all of them are the right way, and some of them are quite literally the wrong way to do it. More or less, it boils down to if you follow a really good set of just basic rules, which are explained in these videos, you can't go wrong, all right? High gain amps have a different attitude because there's a lot more going on. So you got to be a little more careful about how you deal with them. And as with anything, too much of a good thing is still too much. So I'm here to tell you that you can get quite a bit of gain, probably more than you think you need, out of very few numbers of gain stages. This guy here is we'll expose it more in another video, but this guy here is literally one gain stage. Like, it's a 12AX7 that feeds into an EF86. It gets a pretty crazy amount of gain for what it's got going on. Heavy enough to be heavy, but not
it's, you know, not 5150 levels of gain, obviously, but you'll see. It's crazy to think how much gain you can get out of literally one stage of gain. So there's just so many different ways to get there. Most people are into the high gain amps. I'm no different. I have a PV Triple X. I tore apart a Jet City JCA 50H to fix the Cerberus here. So we use the transformers out of it to fix the Cerberus, or return it back to its former glory, at least anyway. And I've had several others before. I've had a PV Ultra 120. I've had many other high gain amps over the years. Turns out I'm not a fan of them. I never used them for the intended purposes that they were built for. So $30, that's a steal of a deal. His grounding makes sense. I do it differently depending on the amp. So I don't like using multiple ground points in an amp. I kind of like doing the flow where you go from the input to the output section. I don't like grounding at the input. I will kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So a lot of the modern companies will say ground at the input and have everything from the pi and to the preamp section ground in that direction. I don't like that. To me, that makes zero freaking sense. If the input is the place that you want all the noise to get away from, why would you send all the noise in that direction? Right? Because if current flows from the highest place down to the easiest way out of the amp, that means all the high current stuff that's at the pi side or the higher gain side of things is going to flow towards the input, right? You're moving noise towards the spot that you want to get it away from. So why are you grounding it at the input when you should be grounding it the other way at the power amp section, or maybe at the very least at the pi, or the end of the preamp section? So all the noise that's in the preamp and the first gain stage goes only one direction. It can't go anywhere else. It can only go further down the amp, down the line, and out of the amp. That's my mentality behind it. It's probably wrong in 100% of different ways, but to me it makes logical sense. Why would you try to make it so the noise flows to the front of the amp where you want to get rid of it, and instead get it from the input out the other direction, away from the input? So no. So there's a couple of depends on that, right? So when I say a couple of depends, I mean that you can ground in multiple different spots, but you just have to be careful. So the noisiest thing in the amp is going to be the power transformer and the center taps and the heater center taps and stuff like that, right? And then the power amp section, so the cathodes and the ground for the output transformer, all that stuff. That's the noisiest stuff in an amp. Now the phase inverter is included in the power amp because it's tied to them directly, right? So it's best to include the phase inverter as part of the power amp, in theory, which means if you include all of that in one grounding point, so one grounding point just for the pi output section and all the other noisy stuff, that's great, that's fine. All the other stuff you can ground somewhere else. I don't like grounding it at the input though. I prefer to ground it at the ass end of the preamp section if I'm going to do it that way. Now with lower gain amps, so amps that only have like 3 or 4 maybe gain stages, it's easiest to just flow it all the way through the amp and then tie it together at the PA, power amp section. It's up to you though. You don't have to do it that way. That's just a way of doing it. I don't have any problem with it that way. I don't have a noise problem. I also use metal film resistors all the way through my amp. I don't use carbon film or carbon comp. I don't use special Mojo, resistors for my amps, I should say. I like metal film. I like metal film resistors. They work. I use 1 watt metal films, and they are noise free or very minimal amount of noise and hiss free. So by the time my amps are up doing anything that you notice that they're, at the volume that you want them to be at, you hardly know that they're on, because they're designed to be quiet and have very little noise. Most amps are not designed that way though. The Pi, effects, OT, negative feedback. The negative feedback always throws a kink in the chain. The effects is generally part of the preamp section, because it's usually tied into the preamp just before the Pi. The Pi usually has the negative feedback enveloped in it, which means you should be tying the Pi and the negative feedback loop kind of with the PA section, because it's all, in that loop, if you will. There's so many different ways you can do it. Whatever one creates the least amount of noise is the way to do it. The way I try to think of it is tangents. So I use tangents. The safety ground, or the ground that comes off of the power receptacle of the amp, that is the exit point of the amp, right? So that is my 0. That is where I consider my 0 to be. Everything else is a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, or a 5, or a 6, or whatever it might be. You want everything to be sequential. So 1, the noisiest thing in the amp, whatever is the most noisy thing in the amp, better be number 1, which means it better be the next closest thing to 0, right? 1, 0, right? Which means the next noisiest thing better be 2. So 2 is a little bit further away than 1 is to 0, etc., down the line, which means that the input of the amp, the thing that should be the quietest and the most sensitive to noise, right, is number 5, 6, whatever, 4, whatever it is. It's the furthest thing away from 0. Right? Makes sense? So 1 is closest, 2 is a little bit further, 3 is a little bit further, 4, etc. If you follow that mentality, it's pretty hard for noise to develop in the amp in the form of ground loops, because 0 is where everything wants to exit the amp. It's trying to go out at that point. It's the only place in the amp that it can actually exit the amp. So if the noisiest thing is closest to it, it's always going to want to flow in that direction. It might swell out a little bit, might start trying to converge a little bit with 2 or whatever, right? But it certainly won't hit all the way over to number 1 or number 5 or 6, right? Where you want the least amount of noise to get. That's my mentality on it. You're trying to make it so everything tangentially is longer and longer and longer from 0 to the input. So noisiest stuff closest, quietest stuff furthest. That's the way I try to do it. I don't have any problems. I think we have gotten to a point where we have done all we can do. Ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen at this point. It's a sausage party usually on my show. I hope that makes sense. I hope we kind of got through most everything. What I can tell you is I will be doing more sound demo stuff here in the near future. I understand that I have not shown any completed amps in a while, other than the Peacemaker and a couple others. The Cerberus is the next full-on demo that we're going to get for sure. I have a couple videos on my channel. Check them out. One of them is in my membership only side of things. So if you're into spending $4 a month, that's cool. You can do that. But I do have other grounding videos in my repertoire. I have roughly 100 videos that are kind of focused on actual building. And it's in there. It's pretty easy to find. It's kind of in the how-to section. Dude, no, it's all good. I appreciate the one-on-one. You're respectful, and I appreciate that. I hope I didn't offend you or anything like that. So thank you for being just responsive and engaged. That's the word. So yeah, just check those out first. If those don't answer it, because a lot of different channels answer a lot of the grounding schemes. They don't quite explain it in the way that I do, where I talk about noisiest being closest to the exit, etc., etc. The tangents. Most of them kind of go on the whole star grounding thing, which is fine. The star grounding thing works. They generally talk about a hybrid version of it. I'm not asking you to join the club, by the way. You're more than welcome to if you want to, though. There's only 2 videos in there at the moment. One of them is just a way to get to know me, and the other one's just that grounding scheme I was just talking about. But there's always more to come. There will be more, obviously. But they talk about hybrid kind of things and different ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't. They're not all the best. There's not one best. You have to play with it a little bit. So just know that there's no one best way. Everything is a compromise. You're always giving up something to get something else. Always. Period. That's just how it works. But you guys, I am getting tired. It is 9:16 now for me. We've been doing this for 3.5 hours. I'm kind of shocked, to be honest. I think I've kind of beat the dead horse. So next week I'll probably do one more. Excuse. I'll probably do one more video next week, just kind of showing what I got going on. We'll do another sound check of the Peacemaker. How do I pronounce your name? Am I pronouncing it right? Is it Raffiot or Raffote? I'm butchering it, I know, but I'm gonna call you Rafa or Raf. But in either case, if you haven't heard this amp yet, there is a couple videos of it already, and definitely check them out. But we're gonna do one more on this thing before we send it out, just for S's and G's, just to kind of show it. But yeah, I'm gonna have a fun trip. That's the idea, is to have fun. So Riley, thank you so much. I think you already sent me your email address. So to be honest, just to put this out there, I haven't sent any t-shirts out and haven't pressed for it really, because Raf, all right, okay, good, thank you. Mainly because I kind of felt like it was appropriate to get the giveaway amp in the owner's hands first before I started doling out all the t-shirts and stuff. Just out of respect. Like, homeboy won, he should get his prize first, and then everyone else can get their prizes. I am going to send these shirts out, though. That is my goal. Oh, you missed that part. This guy right here, somebody won it. I built it by hand, all from scratch. We were kind of talking about it earlier. That is going to Sweden. I am hand delivering it to Sweden. I live in California, Lompoc, California. So I'm in America. And I'm going to take that thing to Sweden. Yeah, right? Thank you, Yuki. Yuki knows. He's all up on it. That amp is getting hand delivered to the winner. So that's the level I will go to make shit happen. Because I don't fuck around. Period. So if I'm not doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it either. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. But I just want to thank you guys so much. Yuki, everybody, Riley, you guys are awesome. Rafa, I appreciate it. Or Raf, sorry. Yeah, hand delivering. So just thank you guys so much. I'm going to call it a night. I will see you next week. We're going to talk a little bit more. We'll show some more stuff off. But in the meantime, you guys take care. We'll see you soon. Good night.